call for a roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Nierenheim?
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein? Okay, Councilmember Nierenheim?
Here. Here.
Something's going on. Something's going on. Okay, Councilmember. I think someone has their TV on. If you can turn it off, please, or they're streaming. Councilmember Horvath?
Here.
Councilmember Gran? Not here. Councilmember MD?
Here.
And Mayor Brand?
Here.
I'm here as well.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
I'm here.
Oh, I did. Okay.
So sounds like everybody's here. Is John Gran here yet? Okay, well, we got a quorum, so we're reconvened to open session. Do we have any, I'm sorry, reconvene from closed session. Do we have any items to report from closed session, Joe?
Only two in terms of attendance. We had for closed session number 3, outside legal counsel Anthony Nash in attendance, and we had council member Laura MD join us in closed session at 4:40 p.m. And that's it.
Okay, great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from closed session.
Motion. Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath?
Aye.
Councilmember Gran?
Aye.
And Councilmember MD?
Aye.
Okay, great. So now I'd like to call to order a regular open session of a city council meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Nierenheim?
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
Here.
Councilmember Horvath?
Here.
Councilmember Gran?
Here.
Councilmember MD?
Here.
Mayor Brand?
Here, let's all rise and salute the flag and take a moment of silence, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So, presentation and proclamations. We have a commendation from Jackie Bacharach, who's the Executive Director of South Bay City's Council of Governments, better known as the COG, Council of Governments, to Redondo Beach City Councilmember Christian Horvath on his term as chair of the SP COG. I believe Jackie is on and would like to commend Councilmember Horvath.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor and council members. I'm delighted that you're allowing me time to be on your agenda this evening because I want to thank the entire city of Redondo Beach for your active participation in the South Bay City's Council of Governments. I'm Jackie Bacharach and I am the Executive Director. We have been extremely fortunate to have the benefit of Christian Horvath as our chair for the last year, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank Ted Seman, who has been chair of our infrastructure working group, and Joe Hefkin, who has been chair of our city managers group. All of them took their assignments very seriously, and they served very effectively and continue to serve. Ted had provided guidance on issues of funding and selection for Measure R and M projects, and he continues to lead the South Bay Public Works directors in addressing issues that come before us, most significantly our working with Metro. We're very happy that Ted will be continuing as the chair of the infrastructure working group. He's a real asset. Joe Hefkin has distinguished himself as one of the best chairs of our city managers working group. I have been going to these meetings for many years, and I can say that with no exception. He has invited guest speakers and ensured that the topics of discussion are timely and important and helpful to the city managers. He will be staying on as chair of the group for a few more months, but he will definitely be a hard act to follow, and we really want to thank Joe for his time doing that. But then, and the reason I asked for this time is to recognize Councilmember Christian Horvath. This has been an extraordinary year. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And he has handled all the ups and downs and meetings and cancellations with great flexibility. He's been an excellent chairman and provided great guidance to the staff in this time that turned out to be significantly different than anyone could have imagined. At our board meeting, when we thanked Christian and honored him, we presented him with a plaque, which I think you've got a picture of. It has all of the logos of all the member agencies and is something we give to all of our chairs. And I think it's going up on the screen. And that's the plaque that we presented him with, right? And so your logo's up there along with the other member agencies. At the meeting, I listed 5 qualities about Christian that you are probably all familiar with. First, he's flexible. We're moving our offices, and he was the first chair that never chaired a meeting in our office as long as we've had an office. We were like moving all over, Torrance, Redondo, Hawthorne, and thank you for your facilities. And then we had to go digital. And he worked with our staff to make sure that those operations happened without a hiccup. Christian is a fair and inclusive person. He's kind and collaborative. With a board of representatives from 17 different agencies, he was committed to consensus and he achieved it. He sought out all perspectives to arrive at decisions and actions that were sensible and even more important, actionable. He's hardworking. Christian had a vision for our signature event, the General Assembly, and he developed a complete General Assembly program that was filled with innovation and fresh perspectives. We got more sponsors this year than we've ever gotten, and we're really excited about being able to present his General Assembly. Disappointingly, of course, we had to cancel, but stay tuned because we're hoping that Christian will resurrect his ideas for March 18th to 2021. Christian's also very hands-on, as you probably all know. Not only was he chair of the COG, but he took a very active and important role in our initiatives, not because he was just the chair, but because he was interested in all of our issues and the committees that dealt with them. He chaired our Transportation Committee, our Homeless Task Force Working Group, and our Finance Committee. But most important to our staff and to the cities of the South Bay, I would think, is that he values the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. He understands that the sum is bigger than the parts and that the mission of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments can bring benefits to all of our members when we work together. And that gets me back to Redondo Beach. So on behalf of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments, I want to extend our sincere thank you for having your talented staff and great council member help lead our organization over the last year. Their participation made us stronger, well respected in the region, and more effective for our member agencies in this very unusual but very productive year for the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. So thank you for this time.
Great. Well, thank you, Jackie, for coming and spending all the time on that and commending Christian and our staff people, Ted Simon and Joe. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on. And Christian, did you want to say anything?
Just thank you very much for the opportunity to serve on the COG as the delegate for the city. It really is a wonderful organization. And I truly believe that when we all are rowing together as a sub-region, that we can accomplish more and actually save money for our individual cities. We're all trying to do very similar things. So it's an enormous amount of work, but I think it really, as we've seen in a lot of things that have come our way recently, it really it bears a lot of goodness for us as a city and for all the other cities. So and I think working this past year, especially with Ted and Joe, also in those positions of leadership, has been super helpful for all of us, to really shine a spotlight on Redondo Beach, and I think we have become a leader in a variety of areas, and so I'm just proud that we're doing that, and I'm very grateful and thankful for Jackie and her mission, because she started this COG, some 20 odd years ago, and I think it has flourished into a wonderful organization that benefits us all. Thank you.
Jackie, have we ever had a chairman from Redondo Beach?
Yes, Bob Pinsler was chair. I can remember that. You might have had some others. Yeah, going back a ways, right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Christian, for your service, and Jackie, and organizing us in this sub-region. It's been very beneficial to us, and we've all learned a lot. And just as an update to everybody, we did get the funding from the MTA, and they are matching our funding. And we had a big, long discussion about that, but it all worked out largely, I guess, because of, well, we just kind of figured out a way to have them approve it before we wrote the check ourselves. So, but anyway, all in all, it's a great news story. Thank you again, Christian and Jackie, for coming on and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Who's the new chair now?
Olivia Valentine from the city of Hawthorne.
Okay. I can't believe it's a year. When I heard that this has been a year, I thought Christian just got appointed. So time flies.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura M., do you have your hand up?
I do. I just wanted to say it's a really big accomplishment that we were able to do that, to have him be chair. And it goes to show what a work ethic he has, because and how much he was able to kind of bring people together and accept his leadership, because that's a room full of city council members that have been doing this a long time. Like Judy Mitchell's been doing it for 35 years, and there's people that have been there for so long. And he was able to step up and take on that leadership in a room full of leaders. And if you could have been there that day when the COG honored him, the things that people said that were truly experienced, truly fixtures of our South Bay leadership, say all the nice things they had to say about Christian. It really did show that Redondo Beach can step up and be a good partner for the community. And so thank you, Christian, for representing us well.
Okay, anyone else? Well, with that, again, thank you, Jackie, and congratulations, Christian, and onward and upward. Thank you. Okay. So next on the agenda is approval of order of agenda. Joe, I think you wanted to move up the item with our lobbyist up in Sacramento.
Yes, we do have with us tonight Michael Arnold, our lobbyist for state matters. So if the council would agree to move that item up, his presentation, which is later on the agenda as item P1, I think that would be helpful both for our lobbyists and I think for the viewing public.
So he's waiting right now.
Yeah, he's on this call.
Okay, we could do that maybe before the consent calendar or something. Anyway, any comments or motions about the approval of order of agenda?
I'll make a motion to, what item is that again? Item P2?
P1.
I'll make a motion to move item P1 to just after public comment and approve the rest of the agenda as is.
I second.
Okay, motion to move item P1 to after public comment, which is item J. And seconded by Councilmember MD. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, so we have our agenda. First up is an agency recess of the regular meeting of the Community Financing Authority. I'm dragging this out as I pull up that item so that we can call the meeting.
Bill, do you want to do announcements sometime soon, or do you want to do?
Oh yeah, well we can do that now. I'm sorry, I missed that. Why don't we do announcements? We'll start with Councilmember Narenheim. Do you have any announcements to make?
Yeah, I hope everyone had a happy 4th of July, happy safe 4th of July. I normally have my community meeting this Saturday at 9 a.m. But because of the current COVID situation, I'm going to actually move that to Monday night at 6:30. I'm going to have it online, not in person. Maybe next month we'll be able to get to it. I was expecting to do it this month in person as well as do an online one as well. But, the current situation that we're in I don't think would be very wise for my constituents to have a room packed full of people in the environment that we're in right now. So hopefully in August. And other than that, that's all. Actually, Riviera Village. If you guys haven't heard about Riviera Village and the garden patios that we have down there, it's really, really exciting. Alan Sanford from Rockefeller and Beach Life has done a phenomenal job. The Riviera BID, Business Improvement District, has funded these garden patios that are on the street. They're amazing, amazing works of art with fake grass. You don't even know that you're sitting where you're sitting. It's added a real excitement, lots of news stories, lots of excitement about it. So really, really cool to see that coming together. This past weekend was amazing down there. I really want to thank city staff for the many hours of hard work, the constant changes in plans and designs. And I know we went through quite a few different revisions and updates. So the Public Works, Mr. Saman, thank you very much. Appreciate that. But everyone is really thankful in the community for that to make that happen. So we're taking the initiative away from the other beach cities, and we're in the spotlight right now. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And other than that, that's it.
Okay, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, a couple things. One is congratulations, Christian, on representing us so well on the COG. So I really appreciate all the time you put into that. And also, also congrats go to Councilman Narenheim for all the work he put into getting that done. He's being a bit modest, as well as staff. I was down there last week, got a chance to talk to Alan Sanford as they were putting it together. So it's pretty impressive. I would second what Nils had said about going out and checking out the outdoor dining. And then finally, had a great community meeting last week with Chief Kaufman. Thank you, Chief, for coming. We had one of the best turnouts and really interesting. So if any of you want to watch it again, go to my Facebook page for my district. And thank you. We covered so many topics, and it was so interesting. So I learned a lot. I know everybody else learned a lot. I had so many people afterwards telling me what a great meeting it was. So hats off to you, Chief, and all the work that you guys are doing. So that's it for me. I've already had our meeting for July, and we'll go, our next council District 2 community meeting will be in August. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Grant.
Yes, I wanted to say.
Sorry, I'm sorry, John. I skipped Christian. Councilmember Horvath. Apologies.
That's okay. Let John go first. He was good.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I just wanted to say, Christian, again, congratulations with the COG. You've done a terrific thing for our city and for the South Bay and all the cities around here. So just congratulations on a job well done. So nice to see you representing Redondo Beach so well. And again, to Ted as well as to Joe, congratulations as well. My community meeting will be online this week on Saturday. It will be at 10 a.m. on Saturday. The emails and registration will be going out very quickly, and we'll just be talking about general stuff, again, COVID-19, as well as some of the things that are going on, but starting to get back to talking about other issues beyond COVID-19, which is kind of nice. So anyway, that's all.
Okay, thank you, John. Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, my community meeting is supposed to be next Thursday. I'm not sure if it will be or if it will get pushed off to the following Thursday, but I'll have all that buttoned up by announcements next Tuesday. And I just want to say thank you to the vast majority of Redondo residents who actually followed the orders and stayed away from the beach this weekend. I know that a lot of people have strong feelings about it one way or the other, but I'm just appreciative that we really didn't have any major issues as a result of that closure. So thanks everyone for keeping us all safe.
Okay, Councilmember Emdy.
In District 5, I just want to say that we have 2 new businesses opening up right in the middle of COVID, and at the Green Tree Cafe is now called the oh gosh, now I'm going to mess that up. South Bay Cafe, Cities Cafe. And, but the interesting part about that is that it was taken over by the people who owned Rocky Mountain Chocolate in the Galleria. And so they are now doing a cafe. Plus, you can still get your Rocky Mountain caramel apples at that location. So it's right in the middle of the neighborhood off of Phelan. And Artesia Market's reopened with a Peach Wave ice cream or yogurt, frozen yogurt. And they have their masks and they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. And so brand new owners there over off of McKay and Artesia. So in spite of the COVID, we're still attracting businesses, and then I hope everybody goes and supports their local business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Emdy. And also, I'd like to thank our staff for springing into action to close the beaches and close Veterans Park for the 4th of July weekend. That was something that came down from the county with very short notice. Beach City mayors got together and decided, we obviously can't act alone. And the crowds that would have amassed, particularly in Hermosa and Manhattan Beach, just were not tenable for the county. And they ended up closing the beaches for the 3 days in the entire county. And our staff responded quite well. And in addition, closed Veterans Park, which most of us know what that looks like on the 4th of July. But the beach closures were not because the beaches themselves aren't outdoors and nice places to be and something you should be trying to do. It's because if you left, if you didn't close the area in Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach, it would have been something that the county just found untenable. And then if you decided, well, we'll close Hermosa, Manhattan and leave Redondo open and El Segundo and those other beaches, PVE, well, then of course they would have been inundated. So we really had no choice other than what happened previously, other than to just close everything and keep it closed and do it in unison, and had to move fast. And it wasn't anything anybody wanted to do. But again, it was something that came down from the county, and I supported it. I got to say, I've seen what Veterans Park looks like on the 4th of July, and we've all seen what happens in Strands. That because of the numbers all going in the wrong direction, as we're all well aware, and in talking to the hospitals and local hospitals, and things were ramping up for them, they're getting more cases. It was the obvious thing to do. So I want to thank all the residents for really adhering to it and making themselves and everybody else safer for the 4th of July. And hopefully everybody had a decent 4th of July regardless. We've all had to make some sacrifices in all this, and really, really appreciate it. And so with that, I guess we'll move on to where we left off, which was the agency meeting. And first up is, hang on one second, folks. It is a meeting, here we go, meeting of the Community Financing Authority. I'd like to call to order and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Member Nierenheim?
Here.
Member Lowenstein?
Here.
Member Horvath?
Here.
Member Gran?
Here.
Member MD?
Here.
Chairman Brand?
Here. Thank you, Eleanor. Blue folder items. Any blue folder items?
No blue folder. No blue folder items, Mayor.
Financing Authority meeting. Consent calendar. There are 4 items on the consent calendar. Any item can be pulled. Anyone can speak about any of these items. Again, this is a meeting of the Community Financing Authority. Is there anybody like to pull any item? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Is there any comments to the consent calendar from the public for this agency meeting?
No items. No comments.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Horvath, I believe, second by Councilmember Nierenheim. Roll call vote, Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, do you need to read anything, Eleanor?
No, not at this one. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Public participation on non-agenda items. Again, this is the Community Financing Authority. Are there any public comments under non-agenda items from the public regarding Community Financing Authority? Any comments for public from non-agenda items?
No items.
Okay,
No comments.
thank you. So there are no public hearings, old or new business. Any referrals to staff from any member? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Horvath, second by Councilmember MD. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, great. So that is adjourned. Our Parking Authority regular meeting was canceled. So I guess we'll take a roll call vote again, returning to regular meeting of the City Council. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Nierenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember Gran.
Here.
Councilmember MD.
Here.
Mayor Brand.
Here. Okay, blue folder items. Are there any blue folder items for this regular council meeting?
Yes, Mayor, we have one for J1, public participation on non-agenda items, public comments. We also have P1, which is discussion and consideration of the report from State Legislative Advocate Michael J. Arnold and Associates that was received by the Mayor, Sacramento Housing Legislative Brief Explanation of Bills. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to add these to the record?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I believe that was Councilmember Horvath, seconded by Councilmember Lowenstein.
No, that was Narenheim.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Narenheim. Do a roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, so those items are added to the record as blue folder items. Next up is consent calendar. Tonight we have 17 items on the consent calendar. We can pass these all at once. Any member can pull an item, take comments from the public before approving any of them. I'll go through the council, see if anybody wants to pull any item. Councilmember Narenheim, is there any item from consent you wanted to pull?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item H7, I believe it is. One sec. Let me verify. Yeah.
Public parking lot on Artesia Boulevard.
Yeah, the park. Yep.
Okay. Councilmember Lowenstein.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Horvath.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gran.
No, thank you.
And Councilmember MD.
No, thank you.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public regarding the consent calendar, Eleanor?
Yes, I'll have Vicky Kronberger read those comments.
Great.
Thank you. First item was item H12. I'll read the title. Approve the Fourth Amendment to the agreement with On the Wing Falconry, Inc. for bird abatement at the pier and harbor for FY 2021, cost of $57,600, and to extend the term to June 30, 2021. First comment is from Lee Del Torio. The comment is, "It has been effective." The second comment comes from Roger Carlson on the same item. "I'd like to thank the Harbor and Economic Development staff for negotiating with On the Wing for reduced services, and I encourage the City Council to vote in favor. Maintaining some pressure on nuisance birds will help prevent a return to resident and nesting birds, and hopefully prevent another expensive cleanup. This is especially important now when outdoor dining will keep pier tenants in business and reduced foot traffic will increase bird activity." The next item is item H14. It's a lengthy title. I'll read real quick. "Accept as complete the citywide slurry seal project, phase 1, job number 41140, and authorize the city engineer to file a notice of completion for the project with the Los Angeles County Recorder and release the final retention payment of $22,811 to American Asphalt South." The comment comes from Lee Del Torio. "North Lucia Avenue between Diamond and 190th has not been slurried. All other streets in this area have recently been slurried, or slurries, as he says, but not 500 block of North Lucia, north to 190th. Why not? When? Thank you." That concludes the comments for consent items.
Let me ask staff, is that section in Lucia, is that programmed for slurry sealing? Does anybody know?
Mayor, this is Ted Savon, Public Works Director. We'll bring that as part of the discussion when we bring in the pavement management study update that we're going to be bringing to the council. We'll talk about not just the overlay, but also the slurry. I don't recall exactly about this block of Lucia.
Okay, we'll try to remember to ask about that when it comes up. Okay, no more comments, Vicky?
No, sir. Those conclude the comments for consent.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar other than item H7.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember MD, seconded by Councilmember Lowenstein, I believe.
Oh, that wasn't me.
Was that you, Christian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. There's a motion and a second. A roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, great. Is something you need to read,
Yes.
Vicky? Or-
Yes, Mayor, thank you. H6, adopt by title only resolution number CC-2007-048, a resolution of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2020, 2021, funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. H8, adopt by title only resolution number CC-2007-050, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, authorizing application for and receipt of local government planning support grant program funds, Local Early Action Planning Grants Program, LEAP. H9, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-207051, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, approving and adopting the Redondo Beach Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. H10, introduction by title only, ordinance number 3203-20, an ordinance of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending section 2-9.101 of Chapter 9, Title 2 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, establishing a minimum number of meetings for all boards and commission of the city for introduction and first reading. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item H7, Councilmember Nairn.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Yeah, if I can get Mr. Simon, I got a couple questions on this. This is the new park that's being currently built right now on the SCE right-of-way, correct?
It is. It's the parking lot that has been constructed as part of the improvements to the landscaping and hardscaping of the Edison right-of-way.
Is this done?
It is done. We're going through some of the punch list items with the contractor, and this is in preparation of opening the parking lot so we can have these signs posted in a timely manner.
Great. There was a lot of community input regarding the parking on this back when we discussed this in 2018 and again in 2019, the staff report talked about. And the concern is the parking being used by the commercial businesses and the residences when in fact the parking here is being built so people can utilize the park and the right of way, the biking here. I'm a little concerned about this solution about allowing the residents to just simply park there overnight and then essentially having the cars out by 7:30 in the morning. And so between 7:30 and 9 a.m., there's absolutely no parking whatsoever by any cars. Is that what I'm safe to assume here?
That's correct. Yes, it's to basically flush any of the vehicles that are in that parking lot so that it becomes available for anyone else to park. It's also there intended to make sure that nobody is using that lot for storage of vehicles or other uses that go beyond that.
So what is to prevent a business owner from coming in and just parking their car all day long in that parking lot and then just walking next door and going to business and having their employees park in that parking lot?
There's nothing that's going to stop anyone. It's open to the public. It's available to anyone, residents, business owners, customers, etc. It'll be available for them to park.
So what I don't want this to have to turn into, and it was a very valid point when I rewatched a lot of the residents talking about this, is we're spending a lot of money on this and on this parking lot. If the commercial businesses start coming in and start having their customers or themselves and their employees park in this lot all day long, the people who are visiting the park and the right of way won't have anywhere to park. So I'd like to see some time restrictions and the amount of hours someone can park there. I mean, 4 hours I think would suffice. It kind of would prevent commercial from just parking all day long for their shifts. Have you guys thought about doing that in addition to the flushing of the parking between 7:30 and 9 a.m.?
You know, I'll maybe let the council members in those districts talk a little bit more about that aspect of it. I do know we had several conversations, some with the community, trying to find concerns about the parking lot, the utilization of the parking lot. The biggest concern we were receiving is to make sure that no one is storing vehicles or having extended parking of vehicles. The fact that it's going to be shared by everyone is understood. The Edison right-of-way, the North Redondo Beach bike path, is not necessarily a park. It's not a destination for people to hang out. We do know that we get a lot of community use of the area by those that live in the vicinity or come in and park somewhere nearby to use the bike path. But I don't believe that the intended use of the parking lot was just for the users of the North Redondo bike path.
So how much did we spend for this entire project?
Andy, you got some numbers that maybe we could share?
Yeah, you caught me off guard on that one. I think we're about $850,000 more or less for the two parcels.
That sounds about right when I looked at it. I mean, now it's even, one of the biggest concerns that the residents had when they were speaking back in February 2019 and in 2018 was we're spending all this, the majority of this money is going to the parking lot portion, when in fact we should be spending a lot of the money here for the park itself and getting people, we're creating this park, which is now creating a parking requirement for the park and getting people to use that right of way. People were very concerned, and rightfully so, that this parking lot area would be now simply taken over by the commercial businesses, residents, and that wasn't the intent of it. I'd like to see a maximum time placed on here, say 4 hours, because I don't want to have that issue. I don't want to spend $850,000, $825, for a parking lot. That was one of the reasons why the community came down and started talking with us in droves. I think it's very important that we have that in place. So those are my thoughts right now on this. I'd like to get this amended to have that included as well, 4 hours.
Councilmember Grant, you get your hand up.
Yep, thank you. So I participated in all of these discussions, the community outreach as well as the other. Mr. Nierenheim, you may be thinking about the other proposed parking lot that's at the other end over kind of near Inglewood. That's where we had a lot of pushback on the parking lot in itself and spending monies there. This one was overwhelmingly received as people that use this area quite a bit. The businesses over there do need additional parking as far as in that area over by kind of where the Blue Saltfish Grill is and the those places. Everyone is very much looking forward to that. What we talked about with the dentist, who is the property owner right next to that, just east of the new parking lot that's there. He was very happy. He said he is going to have all of his people be able to park back behind his area now and be able to keep them there, and that his customers, as well as the customers for the other businesses around there, would be able to kind of come in and come out, and they were very excited about that. The reason that we chose these hours is because it is the exact same process that we use over at the North Branch Library. It's very effective. It allows the residents to do exactly what you're doing, asking, which is to use that for overnight parking if they wish, but then they do have to get out, and move their car before parking goes. And it's been very effective. We talked about a couple of different hours and a couple of different time slots, and pretty much the consensus was, yeah, let's just use the same timing, which is 7:30 to 9 a.m. That was agreed upon. That's kind of what we had. I was in those meetings, and that's what we got as feedback, and that's what we're putting out today. So I'm very much in favor of keeping it exactly like it is with the North Redondo Beach Library. If it turns out that the businesses are just sitting there and parking in there all day, I think we can come back. But this is how the community came out, spoke about it, and we're looking good here, and we're very excited up here in North Redondo to have this thing open. So anyway, those are my comments for now.
Okay, Councilmember MD.
That's basically what I was going to say as well. And so it's worked very well for the library, and I think it works very well for our area. And I think we should try it before we try to fix something that we don't know isn't going to work, because it's worked already, and we should just stick with it for now. So, and just to be clear to everyone, it's not a park. It's a right-of-way. It's not designated park. It's a right-of-way, and they can come in and they can do stuff to it whenever they want to. So just be aware that the community that's listening, it's not a park, but it is something to enhance our area. So, and the original idea is that we could have a master plan, a template, if you will, and then community groups can come and try to fix up the rest of the right of way. We can try to do bigger, better. And that was kind of the idea of the whole project on how it was going to go. So anyway, Mr. Graham said what I was going to say for the most part. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm pretty sure we're in the process of doing like a citywide parking study, and so I think, to Councilmember Nierenheim's point, if we're going to have that conversation, we should probably have it when the parking study comes back, because we may want to just reevaluate how parking is done all along Artesia and or Aviation Boulevard. Right now, we don't have meters up there like the way we do in the Village. Maybe that's something we're going to want to look at, and having time limits like he's talking about. But I would wait till the chief and Public Works comes back with that before we kind of see. I'd rather have all the information before we make any determination as to what to do.
Okay, thank you. Next hand up is Councilmember Naranine.
Yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. We just spent over $800,000 on a parking lot, and there's not very many places we do this. Ted, where did this money come from? What fund?
Oh, I'd have to look through just to see. I believe it was either general fund or parks money, but as it's been mentioned, the idea of it being considered a park is definitely not there as a park under no circumstance. If you remember a lot of the discussions that we were having with Edison about some of the other amenities that we wanted to consider, Edison was stern about saying absolutely not anything that would allow people to congregate. We want this to be a passive recreational area, not someplace where people can congregate and do more. But I'll have to look up the actual funding source for you if you need to.
Right. I believe I looked in the staff report from way back then. It was some sort of parks funding that we used, part of it. Again, if we're going to spend this kind of money on a parking lot, we should be looking to monetize it or have restrictions in here. But just simply spending this money on this area, and if we're agreeing the fact that it's significantly parking impacted, well, we should be monetizing that and having a plan for that. So I would say have not just a 4 hour, but listening to you guys now, the way you guys talked about how it's so heavily impacted, we should be monetizing this with parking meters or stickers or something like that. Mr. Wazanski, are you on the line here? Mike?
Yes.
Where are we with the parking study, and will the parking study that Walker's Consulting do study this area?
I don't believe Artesia is being specifically looked at. I think we are focusing on issues in and around the Village because we have the confluence of the different permit programs, both the employee permit program, we have the heavy use of residential stickers and non-residential stickers, as well as some of the neighborhood programs. We're also diving into some of our additional neighborhood programs east of PCH near the high school and some of our other parking areas of concern. Don't believe Artesia and Aviation are part of that conversation. We certainly can look into that later. I do know parking was contemplated as part of the Artesian Aviation Corridor study. There's some conversation that we may want to have when that comes before you. I know the GPAC looked at that. We'll be having that dialogue with the council, I think, in the next couple of months, which would be a good time to look at it. This is a holistic issue. I think if we're going to tweak any regulations for this particular lot, what I would suggest is you adopt the proposal tonight. Let's get the regulations that have been described in tonight's item implemented. So at least we have that to begin with, because absent these regulations, we have no limitations on overnight parking, extended parking. Really, the minute we take those fences down, the first 20 people that roll in there could park there for 72 hours. So I would strongly encourage you to implement tonight's item. And then if you want to contemplate any subsequent changes, do that at a later date with modifications rather than holding or delaying this action. And clearly parking throughout the community is a fluid issue. Supply and demand come and go. And I think what was stated earlier is on point. We made modifications to the lots, both at the Community Services Office Building as well as the North Branch Library, based on real life experience, based on experience in the corridor and the input from residents that were experiencing either overflow impact or didn't have an opportunity to take some advantage of those lots in the evening hours. So I think that is our best guide for now, but certainly actual experience will tell us, and we'll learn from that over the next several months. So what I would strongly suggest, not to beat to death here, is implement the initial recommendation, and then if you want to continue to study this further, maybe ask for an item on a subsequent review.
I mean, I'd be willing, a part of the motion now, to get this done and taken care of now, because we might as well do this now. Do it right. It's not part of the study that we're doing, the Walker study. It's not part of any overall plan, and we're spending $845,000 on this project. It was sold to us as a North Redondo bike path improvement project, which is great, but now we're being told that this was meant for a parking lot, and we're spending $850,000 to create a bikeway, a parking lot, not a bikeway improvement project. So I'd only be willing to approve this with a subsequent amendment to get back 4-hour parking and or a monetization somehow of parking passes or parking meters or parking pay station like thing, because it's not first hour free and after that they got to pay. I mean, that's fine. That's fine by me. If they want to use a park, you use it for free, but then after that, you got to pay for it. This is a lot of money that we're approving, or that we spent here on the pedestrian bike path, parking area, and bikeway bike path. That's the way it was sold to us, not as a parking lot. So I'll make a motion to approve this item as is, and come back by the end of August with a 4-hour parking restriction, as well as a report on monetization options of this particular parking lot.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. And I will say, as I recall, this was park money, and that it was sold as a way to enhance use of that area as a park. So seems like, but I'm not positive. So it'll be good to know where this funding is actually coming from.
It's Mayor Brand. It's $800,000 from subdivision park trust funds and the capital projects funds.
Well, there you go. Park money to build a parking lot. So it doesn't seem kosher.
Used by businesses.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem like what we should be doing with our park money. But anyway, Councilmember MD, you have your hand up.
I really object to you guys just calling it a parking lot. That parking lot area is 1/8 of the project. 1/8 of the project. And if you build a park, you would have to build a parking lot to go with it anyway. And this was not sold to you ever at the very beginning, Nils, because you weren't even on council when we first did it. This has been going on long before that. Sure, there were times along the way that we brought it back to you, but this was started way before that. And it started off with, there was $200,000 in the CIP project to redo all of the water the irrigation system. And so that's what was in there. That's what started it. And so it was going to be $200,000 to do all of the irrigation, or we could revamp a little bit of the Artesia Boulevard, because the whole idea was to redo Artesia Boulevard so that we can then make it more attractive for everybody, because it was a mandate by residents that that's what they wanted. So I know you guys live in a place where you have parking enforcement, but we don't have parking enforcement. You call it parking enforcement in North Redondo, and it's a 1 in 5 chance you're ever going to get somebody up there to do it, because there isn't anything that makes them want to come up there. And I'm sorry to throw parking under the bus, but it's a true statement. We have a guy who's selling cars and is taking up an entire block full of parking. And can we get people up there to go help take care of that problem? No. So we're not going to get enforcement on there. This is the best way to do it. It's worked out well at the library, the North Redondo Library. I would like to make a substitute motion that we adopt by title only, Resolution CC 2007-049, setting the parking lot regulations for the new public parking lot located on 2500 block Artesia Boulevard, pursuant Section 3-1002 of Redondo Beach Municipal Code. And this is just talking about setting those hours, but the money isn't just for the parking lot. That's only 1/8 of the entire project. So just to be clear about that.
Okay, there's a substitute motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the substitute motion in a second. Ted, you had your hand up?
I did, Mayor, and I really wanted to clarify the idea that the money wasn't spent for the parking lot. There was extensive improvements done within those 2 blocks. We re-landscaped the entire area. We regraded it, re-landscaped it, put in DG pathways that extend the connection and the walking path for the pedestrians, those that have pets, etc. We've made connection points with it. So there's a significant amount of improvement to the 2 blocks. It is not, the money wasn't necessarily spent for the parking lot. And one other comment, I think it's been said by Mike Witsanski that this could be reconsidered anytime in the future. Absolutely. If the council sees a need to restrict parking further for the duration of time during the day, that's something that you could make as a referral to us, and we can bring that back for consideration by the council. That could happen. But I do want to say on the monetization, that was an extensive discussion that we also had with Southern California Edison. They are very concerned about an improvement that would have been a for-profit, as they called it. And that was a big no-no under the current amendment that we have with our license agreement for the use of the area. It would have to be something to be considered in the future. We would have to reopen up our discussions and negotiations with them if we were to consider going down that path anytime in the future.
Yeah, historically, Edison, anytime you use right-of-way for for-profit ventures, particularly parking, they're going to want a share of that revenue. And I do think that I certainly like the monetization discussion. I think it's something we should have. But I do think the best time for that is to contemplate that as you evaluate the Artesia Aviation Corridor plan. Because to me, monetization shouldn't be specific to this lot. It should be to how we park for businesses, patrons, and residents in that entire corridor. And I think that's the time for that dialogue. And, you know, we've talked about centralized parking lots that could be commercialized, that we could charge license fees to build to help offset some of the parking demand for different restaurant needs, et cetera. So it's a much more holistic conversation. I don't think we want to do it in an isolated way. And in this case, Edison, the agreement doesn't allow us to install any kind of for-profit parking on this particular site.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Well, that $800,000 could have gone to building a skate park. Well, that's one thing that we've not been able to do. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've seen conversations, written conversations between certain council people and the local business owner about parking there. And then Mr. Grant also said that the fish and salt place, I forgot what the name of the place was next to Menchie's, also uses it as overflow. So I don't see any problem with putting it as 4 hours. If that's what people are using it for using it for the bike path, and then I have no problem with regulating it. But for us to say that it's just for more than parking, the primary use of that $800,000 is going to parking. I'm sorry, it certainly looks that way. So.
Okay. Thank you. There's a motion, a substitute motion, and a second on the floor. Councilmember Nierenheim, you had your hand up. Did you want to say?
Yeah, real quick. Councilmember Grant, didn't you recuse yourself from this item back in February 2018?
That was the entire issue. The second portion of this, or the portion that's on the south side of Artesia Boulevard, is within 500 yards of my house. This is not. This parking lot is not.
Okay. You know, Councilmember MD, listen, you know, the reason why we get elected to these positions at different times is to give different viewpoints. And I appreciate what you said regarding this. And if I was elected or appointed to the council in February and October of 2016, the disastrous waterfront project wouldn't have passed, saving the city millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, you know, there is that. So we're here to bring different viewpoints and ideas forward. And I hear you on code enforcement, or excuse me, and your point, parking enforcement. And if you want more parking enforcement up there, let's give them a reason to go up there every single day. And I know you had a parking enforcement issue on, I believe it was Rockefeller. Well, let's give them more reason to go up there and monetize the situation. If they're going to come up here for 7:30 to 9 a.m. and clear the parking lots every day, let's hand out a few more tickets and monetize that if it's so much of a big deal. Let's think about this in a way that will help you. But simply creating a parking lot now for $850,000 and using whichever way you want to go down this path, we need to think about adding more resources to North Redondo, and if it's getting parking enforcement up there to enforce this, ensure that people are using the park for a good, valid reason, and if people are going up there, the commercial businesses just using this parking lot so they can park for free, that doesn't help us in the city very much. So we need to monetize that, and it's a lot of money. I could see myself, amending my motion, but it's not my motion on the floor right now. But I think if we can monetize it and give SCE some of the revenue, I'd be fine with that. I don't care about that. And then definitely the 4-hour thing. That's not my current motion on the floor. I think it's very important that we have these discussions, follow-up discussions for this, to make sure that we get the best bang and best value for our money and see what our resources we can bring to North Redondo and make it successful. So we have the same discussions in South Redondo and Riviera Village. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I have nothing else to say on this for now.
Okay, so this conversation has expanded greatly from setting parking regulations for this new lot, but I get it, and it's an important conversation. And there's a motion on the floor in a second, a bunch of hands going up. I guess I'll just call on the hands, and then we'll have a vote. Councilmember Grant?
Yeah, I'll just go back to what my original comments were. This is exactly what the public asked for. This isn't about the businesses. This is about the public saying, we need more parking up here because we use these businesses up here. Thank you very much. And this was a very well-received and well-supported project. We had one person who yelled and screamed about it because they didn't want a parking lot. All the rest of them at these meetings, that's pretty much, we had consensus on everyone except one person. And this is what the public wants. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Lowenstein, do you mean to have your hand up?
I did, yeah, real briefly, a couple of things. One is, I agree with you, John, that's fine. Then establish a bid up there, like we've been trying to get them to do, to help pay for things like this. But taking subdivision park trust money from the entire city and putting it just there for parking to service those businesses doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. The other thing is, in terms of enforcement, I agree with you, Laura, 100%. I just hope that everybody is not going to go deaf again when I talk about enforcement and the need to look at private companies to come in to help us. When we talk about this again, remember that we're talking about everything from parking enforcement to leaf blower bans to plastic bans, all these things. And we can't complain about there not being enforcement if we're not trying to do everything we can to assist the people that are already out there doing enforcement. If we only have 2 enforcement officers, where years ago we had, I think, a dozen, if I'm not mistaken, these 10 or 12. We need help here. And I hope you guys remember this conversation when we talk about it again. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Horvath.
Listen, I'm going to make a referral. When I spoke earlier, I thought that was a citywide parking study, and that included everywhere, not just South Redondo. So if we haven't done it, then I'm going to make a referral later to make sure that either we postpone that study and include North Redondo as a part of it, because this conversation is about whether or not parking along Artesia and those areas should be monetized. I think it's an extremely valid conversation to have. But so I'll make that referral. I'm just making that point now. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second to accept this as is and staff recommendation.
Mayor Brand, we have an e-comment.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
You got it, Vicki?
One moment, I was just refreshing my screen. I'm sorry, sir. Give me just a sec to pull it up. From Mel Samples, this discussion should have been fleshed out before the project was approved. I do not understand why any discussion of parking restrictions does not center around making this lot consistent with the on-street parking adjacent to the lot. It simply makes no sense because inconsistency either pushes existing traffic to the new lot or detracts from the lot's effectiveness. And that concludes the comments.
Okay, thank you. Christian, did you mean to still have your hand up?
No, I'm sorry.
With that, I'll take a vote on the substitute motion. Roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim?
No.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
No.
Councilmember Horvath?
Aye.
Councilmember Gran?
Aye.
And Councilmember MD?
Aye.
Okay, so it passes 3-2.
Okay. Adopt by title only resolution number CC-2007-049, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, setting parking regulations for the new public parking lot located at 2500 block of Artesia Boulevard pursuant to section 3-10.02 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor. Next up is public participation on non-agenda items. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on anything that's not already on the agenda. It's limited to 30 minutes. Each person gets 3 minutes. People have written in. How are we handling this, Eleanor? Are people online waiting to speak? Do we have some items that we can read into the record?
Yeah, we have a e-comment.
Go ahead.
Comment submitted by Laura Duke. BCHD Healthy Living Plan. If this plan were needed, it should be on let me start once again. If this plan were needed, it should be on residential high density, not a public zone. The BCHD board members believe we are pretending to believe this proposal is allowed outright on this site when it's not. Their plan is not for public use. It's for rich people. RCFEs, Residential Care Facility for the Elderly, are not allowed without the Planning Commission and City Council okaying a conditional use permit. This plan would threaten the health of the residents and the neighborhoods themselves. The board knows this because they've heard hundreds of bright residents loaded with more specific data than the board itself has provided. With schools and homes in every direction, the fallout from this massive development would be traffic, destruction of property values, and loss of neighborhood character. BCHD is supposed to use our property tax dollars to develop and operate community programs, not gamble with our money. If this project proceeds, it most likely will require a public vote based on the property use switching from public to private under the requirements of Measure DD. And a quick read of the relevant section of the general plan land use element already shows violations. The most glaring, is this compatible with type, character, and density of adjacent uses? No, it's not. The BCHD board members appear not to know the zoning, including their real estate expert. Yes, unbelievably, they have an executive director of real estate. One board member at their June meeting admitted she didn't know there might be a zoning question. This is 3 years into the project. Yes, Silverado is there now, but it does not mean future private facilities can be there. Go online to qcode/US, Redondo Beach zoning, to learn about PCF, Public Community Facility. What used to be called public or institutional is now Public Community Facility, changed to emphasize the need for community-focused land. This is critical as it relates to this proposal. The sensible alternative to this plan is reduce current programs and start to operate within the means at their disposal. Health districts should reduce stress, not cause it. That concludes comments for public communications on non-agenda items.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for reading that. Next up then is item P1. We moved this up on the agenda because we had our lobbyist from Sacramento, Michael Arnold, going to participate in this item. Michael, are you on? I don't see.
There he is.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Hello, Mayor.
Well, hello, Michael. Thanks. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll just briefly set the stage for some of your comments. Our council well aware of the legislation that's been passing through Sacramento, I'll say for the last 3 years now. This is the third session where they've been passing numerous bills to eliminate local control. Their general philosophy is that the housing shortage and affordability crisis is much the fault of local, really discretion on what projects to approve, when and where and how, and they under the basic assumption that they're going to fix the housing crisis in California by taking away local control. And we've heard the bills, SB 827, SB 50. Everybody's all excited that SB 50 got killed last year. Well, now they're back this year. It's the third session where they're basically piecemealing much of SB 50. It's very complicated. There are now 10 bills up there. I haven't been drilling down on all of them because there's been more than 10. Some did not get to the next house, but 10 were passed recently from the Assembly to go to the Senate, and in the Senate to go to the Assembly, that in various forms take away our local control to control zoning and to control development. And so it cuts at the heart of much of what we do as a city council and a local community. And by, taking away a variety of controls, we have gutting CEQA, taking absolving several projects of a normal California Environmental Quality Act analysis and what impacts there will be for a community, which has been very critical. But again, it's all rooted in the idea that local communities' control of zoning and development is responsible for the housing shortage in California, and they've taken upon themselves in Sacramento to try to fix the housing shortage by taking away local control. So with that, it's great to have you on, Michael. Michael Arnold is our lobbyist up in Sacramento, who's been well versed on all this, and we wrote a letter recently opposing SB 902. That was just one bill. There's 9 more, and we have a bill in here that tries to cover all the bills. And I think as part of this letter to the various to our state reps and to the various chairs of the different housing housing committees that this is going to, we should be more specific now that we know which bills have been passed on to which house. So we can probably be more specific. But with that, Michael, why don't you go ahead and kind of give us a brief on where you see things are going and where they are right now. And I know they've extended this session. They now don't know when they're coming back to session because of a COVID case by one assembly member.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. That's an excellent background for the conversation that we're going to have about housing bills and other issues. So let me start by just giving you a bit of a framework in terms of what's going on in Sacramento these days. It is the craziest legislative session that I've been in, and I've been doing it for a long, long time. With the COVID situation, the legislature has not been meeting in person for the last several weeks. In fact, the Capitol is virtually empty these days because they've had some COVID cases with staff. And on Monday, the Assembly Speaker's office announced that they would not be back on July 13th when they were supposed to come back from their summer recess. So everything is really quite up in the air at this point in time. They are required to adjourn by August 31st. So when they do come back, it's going to be quite a sprint, and we'll be very, very busy with all the bills that started in the first house, now in the second house, and various hearings being necessary. So with that, let me begin by saying that we sent you 2 documents. First, our long legislative status report, which shows all the bills that we're following, and that's 31 pages of bills. And then secondly, a separate piece on just housing bills, and there are 23 of those that we're tracking. As the mayor said, that there are 10 key bills. So in terms of local government, the reason why local governments are formed in the first place is principally for 2 reasons. First and foremost, to control land use within the boundaries of the city. If someone decides they don't want a meat packing plant next to their single family residence, maybe they're going to form a city and therefore be able to control land use. The second reason, of course, is to determine the level of public services provided to the residents and paid for by the residents. So Unfortunately, these days, the legislature can't figure out how to address the housing shortage in California, which they also blame for homelessness throughout the state. And so there has been so much action these days in the legislature relative to housing bills. And unfortunately, most of that action involves mandates on local agencies and taking away local control of land use in one fashion or another. As the mayor mentioned, we strongly opposed SB 50 by Senator Wiener. And we were successful working with various other groups in killing that measure on the floor of the Senate. And let me say that our Senator, Ben Allen, voted no on that proposal. And we are very fortunate to have Senator Allen and Senator Maritsuchi as our two members of the legislature in Sacramento. They are both very accessible, very supportive of local control, and they've been just really good members for the city. And so we're happy that we were able to stop, as I say, working with many other groups, SB 50. That's the measure, by the way, that initially came up with the idea of transit-rich areas and job-rich areas. And the definition of transit-rich and job-rich areas in the bill would have basically included the entire city of Redondo Beach. So pursuant to this bill, a developer could have put up to a 4-unit development on any parcel within a transit-rich area or a jobs-rich area. So not only a 4-unit, but even a 4-story facility. So we're very happy that we're able to stop that bill. The other bill I'll just mention briefly is SB 902, which is the next iteration by Senator Wiener. He continues to push for something to be done in this area. The problem with SB 902 is that it claims to be voluntary, except that the bill proposes to allow any existing city council to override any local ordinance or charter provision involving land use in that particular city. So if you have a 5-member council, 3 members of that city council could override a proposition, for example, put on the ballot via the initiative process and passed. And so that's a provision in SB 902 that we're extremely concerned about. And so we will be continuing to oppose that measure on the Assembly side. I won't discuss any more specific housing bills or other bills, but we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'll just say that I think it's a really good idea that the city created the template opposition letter that we can use for these bills as they come up, so we can react more quickly. I will note that the bills are being amended and have been amended very, very recently. So we're still in the process of evaluating many of these proposals and hope to get that done by the time the legislature comes back to Sacramento, so that we'll know exactly where we stand with respect to all of the bills which have been amended. Myself and legal counsel in the office, Christy Foy, we read every bill and every amendment every morning so that we keep up with bills as they are amended, and we flag the ones that are of greatest interest and ship them down to city staff. City staff does a marvelous job of reviewing the proposals and keeping us up to date relative to any issues that Redondo Beach might have with any of the revisions made to a bill that perhaps we weren't even following previously. So let me stop there and respond to any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I know you've got decades and decades of experience up there, so it's meaningful for you to say. It's crazier than anything you've seen in this session. And I heard the same thing about last year's session from people like yourself and people at the League of California Cities who have been doing this for a very long time. So I think, basically our action tonight will be to send that letter that we've crafted with assistance of staff. But I do think we should be more specific because I think it gives gives a guideline for our state representatives on what's important to us and what we're looking forward to them opposing or approving. Just to touch on SB 902 and some of the assembly bills that recently got approved, our local legislators, both Senator Allen and Assemblymember Miritsuchi, were recorded as no votes recorded. No votes recorded. So you either vote yes, you vote no, or there's no vote recorded. And so I really think we need to encourage our state reps to oppose these actively and not just stand down and not record a vote. There's a lot of politics goes on up in Sacramento, and kudos to Assemblymember Miritsuchi, who often has gone against his usual base. And for instance, last year, SB 330, which made dramatic changes to what's allowed in development and what's required for cities to approve, Al Miritsuchi, Assemblymember Miritsuchi, broke ranks with his normal base and voted against SB 330, where our state senator Ben Allen was a no vote recorded. And again, recently on SB 902, Senator Allen was a no vote recorded. So, we need to get some no votes from Senator Allen and no votes from Senator Miritsuchi on these bills to send the message that there is opposition, not just we're not going to take a position. So real quick, the bills, I'll go through them real quick. SB 1120. Again, these bills have been passed on to the next house, which means they have legs. And that allows 4 market rate homes where a single home now stands. So if you're in an R1 neighborhood anywhere in Redondo Beach, District 1 to District 5, this bill would require the city to allow 4 units on that R1 lot. SB 902, we've talked about that. It's probably unconstitutional and will require lawsuits, and will initiate lawsuits from many cities who have initiatives like we do. That goes right to what was Measure DD and now Chapter 27 in our city charter. It overrides it by a simple majority vote of the council, where that already exists, that a city council can rezone an area unless there is this provision. 995, it fast tracks buildings and can ignore CEQA if a developer offers 49% as affordable. SB 995 slashes that 49% to just 15%. So developer is able to bypass CEQA if he just allows 15%. So yeah, and it also undercuts the legislature's commitment to affordable housing. Currently, SB 1085, developers are rewarded a 35% increase in apartment building side, a density bonus, if 40% of the units are affordable to moderate income. SB 1085 slashes this to just 20%. So they would get a 40% increase in size by allowing just 20% affordable, which we already did at Galleria without giving them a 40% density bonus. I mean, I could go on with many of these. They're complicated, and as Michael Arnold pointed out, they continue to amend them. But I think the basic tenet of them all is to eliminate our ability to control what happens in our own town. And so I think we obviously need to take a strong position that we're opposed to these bills and be a little bit more specific in the letter. It's easy just to list them as is. One of the bills by Richard Bloom, I think it's 3107, allows 100 units per acre on commercial property that qualify. So requires it. And so we have no discretion. So these bills are very draconian. If you can imagine some of our commercial areas having to require 100 units per acre, it's pretty daunting when you think about it. So, but it's complicated, and this is coming up every year now. And there's a variety of bills. They're now piecemealing what is SB 50. And so now, a lot of the cities and elected officials don't understand what's going on. It's happening very quickly. It's very complicated. People often don't want to go against their state legislature. But yeah, this is the time to take a much closer look at it than we have in the past, or to at least continue on in what we've been doing. So I highly encourage the council to approve sending this letter with more, maybe these specific 10 bills that much of which I got. There's a organization up in Northern California called Livable California, which has been tracking much of these housing bills that are taking away local control and bypassing CEQA. So with that, I'll be quiet now. As you can tell, I'm pretty cranked up about this issue and have been for 3 years longer. Anyway, Councilmember Lowenstein, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I have a couple questions for you. The first one of which is there was significant organized opposition to SB 50 last year with Portofino and everything else. Are you seeing that type of organized opposition from cities and their lobbyists? And the second question I have for you is with the compressed legislative docket, some of these bills have already made the floor. I assume they're going to go to the other house. And if they can't agree on it, there'll be some type of a joint committee, I would assume, just like there is in the U.S. Congress. I don't know how it works in Sacramento, but I assume it's the same. How will this go for a vote with both chambers in such a compressed period of time? Where does it rest on the docket compared to other legislation in Sacramento with COVID really, sucking the oxygen out of the air? I hate to use that analogy, but it's pretty much the case right now with everything that's going on. Where do you see this in terms of priority for the Senate and the Assembly?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. Really good observations. First, in terms of the amount of opposition, it really depends upon the bill. As we mentioned, with respect to SB 50, there was considerable opposition, and even from people who were afraid of gentrification of neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. So, with respect to, for example, SB 902, the son of SB 50. Still by Senator Weiner, the bill is pretty much voluntary in terms of cities and counties. However, it does include that language which says that a city or county, can override any local ordinance or even charter provision. And as the mayor has noted, it's likely unconstitutional because, after all, charter cities have plenary authority over local affairs. And so the question is it a matter of statewide concern or a local affair? So the degree of opposition really depends upon, how bad the particular bill is. And opposition generally generates more in the second house. In fact, the California process is slightly different than the congressional process. In California, bills can be introduced in either house, either appropriations bills or any kind of bills, and they must first pass one house and then pass the second house. If they're amended in the second house, they go back to the house of origin for a concurrence vote in the amendments that were made in the second house. And if they get that concurrence vote, then they're passed on to the governor. So it's only when when the original house non-concurs in second house amendments that a conference committee is created. We don't use many conference committees these days. In the old days, we used to have lots of conference committees, but nowadays people generally work things out on the floor of the second house before they send the bill back to the house of origin for concurrence and in those amendments. But on the question of the compressed docket, that's something that concerns me greatly. With the COVID-19 situation, a lot of things are going on. Decisions are being made behind the scenes. There is one big hearing on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. People are not allowed to show up in the room for the most part. And so, there are ways that if you're sophisticated enough, you can call in and testify, but that process is a difficult one. So I do worry about both the compressed docket, as you described it, and also the impact that the COVID situation is having in terms of public input in terms of these kinds of decisions. So we will be extremely watchful. As they say, the price of democracy is eternal vigilance, and we're going to do that on behalf of the city of Redondo Beach and stay very involved in all of these bills. And I might also say that the mayor has just done a marvelous job in working in this area on behalf of the residents of Long Beach. So it's a pleasure to work with the mayor and all of these on all of these bills.
That would be Redondo Beach, Michael, but we know what you meant.
Yes. What did I say?
You said Long Beach.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're not working for Long Beach, are you?
No, I am not, actually.
I'm at Bill.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, well, I don't see any hands up, but I'd entertain a motion to send that. I think the city should also take a position on the, what do you call it, Mike, where you go on the opposition side and register your opposition.
Yeah.
Yes,
with every committee, we'll definitely make sure that happens on the bills that the city decides to oppose. No question about it.
Okay, Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Mr. Mayor, some of your comments there. Are you wanting us to make a motion that we revise the letter with more specificity, or per each bill, or keep it generic and allow staff to then add in specificity based on each bill? I want to be clear about what it is you're getting at.
I think it's closer to your second comment that keep it generic and let staff add in the specifics. I added a blue folder item for the 10 specific bills that would directly affect us. So, yeah, I think since we know what has moved on to the next house, we can come out in opposition to these particular bills that are consistent with what the overall general theme of our letter is that we have already drafted. So I just think since we know the bills now, we can go and register in each bill our opposition as opposed to just like this generic bill.
Okay, then I would make a motion to direct staff to use the general template letter and then add in specific language per each bill in collaboration with Michael Arnold, especially as it moves through the process and may need reiterations or changes from us depending on amendments made during the process.
Mayor,
I'll
we
second
have
that.
e-comments.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, and we have e-comments. And I will also add that I'll be going to other local cities and alerting them to this and building awareness, because frankly, a lot of local communities, cities just don't even know this is going on. And I think it'd be helpful to get more opposition from our neighboring cities like Hermosa, Manhattan, Torrance. It's going to have a huge impact on them as well. So.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, just note too that the COG has taken many positions against on a majority of these bills. So, and those cities are part of that. And also, I should let you guys know there is a legislative breakfast coming up with representatives from each of the offices. So Ben Allen, Al Marisucci. Sometimes we also have other assembly members and senators as well. So it may be a good thing for people to show up and voice opposition, since there's reps or the elected officials from a variety of different districts.
Do you know offhand when that meeting is, Christian? I saw an announcement of it, like August 6th, July 10th.
Give me a second here.
There are some people that are interested in that. And you learn a lot from tuning in and listening to what people, other things going on. It's okay. We can come back to it. Let's take some comments, and then when you find it, we'll alert everybody.
It's this Thursday at 9 a.m.
This Thursday at 9 a.m.
Yes.
At the COG. So
well, virtual, yeah.
Virtual. Anybody interested in attending, I guess, email myself or Councilmember Horvath. We can send you a link on how you can listen in. So with that, we'll go to public comments. Eleanor or Vicky, you said that there were some public comments.
Yes.
We do have one comment submitted from Sheila Lamb. I strongly support this action to stop state government from taking control of local municipal zoning. Thank you. That concludes the comments.
Okay, well, that was short and sweet. There's a motion on the floor and a second motion by Councilmember Horvath and second by Councilmember Grand. I don't see more hands up. I'll go with roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Grand.
Aye.
Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay. Well, there you go. Thanks, Michael, for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's very helpful to have somebody with your experience level up here explaining to us what's going on in layman's terms, because it can be very daunting trying to figure out all the players and the issues and how it's moving. It has great impact. These things, folks, you got to understand this is a dramatic impact on the future of Redondo Beach. There's no question about it. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen even after the year. You're going to wake up in 10 years and go, what is this 4-unit complex doing on R1 lot? And so, yeah, this is definitely stuff that needs to be paid close attention to. So thanks again, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council.
So,
Mayor Brand,
sure.
there was an e-comment for public participation of non-agenda items during that time. I guess it was, they put it in the wrong section. Can we?
Oh, okay, well, go ahead and read it.
Go ahead, Vicki.
The comment was submitted by Kimberly Isaacs. I would like to address the board regarding the police budget. It's my impression that the budget is $44 million and the chief makes $400,000. This seems excessive. Their budget should be reduced. What is the city doing to take away nonviolent calls away from the police, which would reduce their budget and allow the appropriate professionals to handle nonviolent calls, such as medical professionals? And what is the city doing to combat white supremacy in our community? This community is extremely diverse, but only city council, but I think it's incorrectly said, but our city council is not. And I'm sorry, that does conclude the public comment.
Okay, thank you. So the public knows we can't respond to things that are not on the agenda. So, but thank you for that. And that's the purpose of comments under non-agenda items. You don't have to wait for it to be agendized to get your comment in. Okay, with that, we have no public hearings. We'll go right to the first discussion item. Discussion and possible action regarding temporary allowing the use of leaf blowers for city maintenance operation. I'm sorry?
Wait, yeah, never mind. Sorry.
We said something. Okay. Hopefully I'm in order. I don't think I missed anything. Did I miss anything?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item 7, Ted Simon, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Ted Simon, Public Works Director. This comes under the direction of the City Council at the budget hearings. You gave us direction to come back with an ordinance to consider an interim approval for city forces to be able to use the leaf blowers. Thanks to the efforts of the city attorney in drafting the ordinance. With me is Mike Klein, and he's going to walk you through the presentation on the item.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Mike.
I think he's, where'd he go?
Hey, Mike, you're muted.
Yeah.
There we go.
My camera's failing on this one. Is it okay if I continue?
Oh, sure. We hear you fine, Mike. That's the important part. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Mike Klein, Deputy Public Works Director. Per the City Council's request, we, with thanks to the City Attorney for drafting the ordinance, are bringing this item tonight for the Council to consider temporarily allowing the use of leaf blowers by the city maintenance crews. In January 2018, the Council adopted an ordinance creating a citywide ban on the use of leaf blowers. The ban was in response to residents' concerns about noise, dust, and emissions. The ban has been followed by city crews and city contractors since the ordinance came into effect nearly 2 years ago, thereby requiring significant staff time to be spent on cleanup. For city crews and additional costs for city contractors, for example, WCA or tree trimming, that was a 10% increase in costs. During the budget review on June 16th, the council asked staff to bring back an ordinance to consider an amendment to the leaf blower ban to allow use of leaf blowers by city personnel within the course of their job duties. Not being able to use leaf blowers has had a significant impacts on the Public Works Department operations, particularly the Parks Maintenance Division. Collecting landscape debris manually takes roughly 5 times as long as clearing it with leaf blowers. Other negative impacts include not being able to collect debris in hard to reach areas such as under play equipment, clearing long stretches of walkways and bikeways such as the North Redondo Beach bike path and the Esplanade, and increased exposure resulting from crew members spending more time working in areas adjacent to passing traffic. Allowing the use of leaf blowers by city crews would reduce the city staff hours needed to clear landscape debris from approximately 7,500 hours per year to about 15. Examples of enhanced services that could be provided include servicing medians and mowing fields every 2 weeks rather than every 3 weeks, and clearing debris from exteriors of city facilities such as City Hall daily rather than once per week. The recommended action is for council to introduce by title only ordinance 3202-20, amending section 4-24.507 of Article 5, Chapter 24, Title 4 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, providing a temporary exemption to the ban on the use of motorized leaf blowers by city maintenance operations. With council's approval tonight, the ordinance will be brought back on July 21st for its second reading and consideration for adoption, becoming effective 30 days after adoption. Thank you for considering this action. That completes my presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Maybe we should go to the city attorney first. Mike Webb has got his hand up. Michael?
I just wanted to make certain that the council saw that there was a space left in the ordinance in subsection C, the second paragraph. It was a result of, this got on the on today's agenda as part of a compromise between Councilmember Grant and Councilmember Lowenstein. Councilmember Grant had proposed it for a longer time. Councilmember Lowenstein had a lesser time, and it was a referral to staff. And so you can pick, and I could be wrong on this. I think Councilmember Grant wanted a year, Councilmember Lowenstein threw out 6 months, and you did the referral as, okay, you'll debate it tonight when you have it on the agenda to debate. So you can pick a time, as we've done with the way we wrote the basically the dining decks in Riviera Village, but on the TUPs, we wrote it so that it extended for the duration of the declaration of a local emergency. So you could say until the local emergency is declared over, or you could do a specific time, whichever way the council wants. The one thing that I would add is that clearly Public Works has a tremendous amount of additional duties. You know, when as the mayor pointed out, the county notifies us on the Wednesday before that they're closing the beaches as of 12:01 a.m. Friday. Public Works has to get out and put all the blockades and barricades up, and so they have a lot of additional duties. So you may want to think of that while you're deciding what the appropriate duration of this exemption would be. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. First hand up is Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Webb. This was something that I had requested or we discussed during the budget campaign or the budget discussions. So I was approached by the Public Works Department, and as we know, Public Works, along with all of the other departments, except for the public safety folks, they had reduced their budgets by about 15%, which had significant cuts to their staff. Through the budget process and the budget that we actually approved, we did or were able to keep two positions still on the budget, but we still cut a number of staff positions and we did a number of things. So when I brought this up, one of the things that I did, and as we were starting to look at how to compromise here, basically looking at this and saying, look, we've just taken even more people away from them. This is a way where we can actually help them get more done with less people. Okay? And it is something that we originally discussed when we put the leaf blower ban in place as well. And so as I brought this forth, I do believe that we're asking a lot from our Public Works Department. We also ask them to cut just like everyone else. And this is something that we can do to actually help one of our departments. I wish we could do this for some of the others. This is something that we're only using it on public property. We're going to be doing this for a temporary time. This is until a set period at some point down the road, whether it is the end of the ordinance. I suggest the end of the year because as the end of this fiscal year, and the reason I say that is we're going to be discussing all of the positions as we start to look at the budget again. And one of the significant compromises that we had during our budget time, and what Mayor Brand had talked about, and a number of other folks had talked about, was leaving these positions open and not closing them. We did it all temporary. We did it so that we had these positions we had them defunded, but not removed from our budget. So in that vein and in that place that we're going there, I believe that as we start to look at bringing back those positions, or at least looking, hey, how do we fill some of these, and setting our priorities, both the public service, the public safety, with public works and some of the others. I believe that looking at this at the same time that we're going to readdress those and keep this going at that point. So my thought was a year, since we're going to be looking at this 2021 budget through an entire year through June 30th of next year. It's a short year. It is going to be a crazy year. We're going to be in COVID-19 for quite some time. And these folks, I'll just end with this, these folks are out working every day as well. They are essential workers. They're out doing their thing, and I'd like to help them. I thought it was very admirable when Councilman Ehrenheim tried to save a couple of positions the last time we had a budget, had to cut some. And I think that this council did a very good job in coming to some, I'll say some compromise, again, doing more temporary cuts rather than full-fledged cuts. And I think this is something that would send a good message to our employees, but also to our residents as well. We're trying to get the job done. We just keep taking pieces and people away from the Public Works Department. And again, I think that this is something that we can do for one of the departments that does go over and above. Again, even Mr. Lowenstein talked about, hey, how wonderful it was that they were able to close down the beach very quickly. They have to be out there and do that. They also then took them out first thing on Monday morning. So they do go over and above for us. I think this is something as a council we can do for them. So thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Grant. Next is Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah. Your term slippery slope, just definition idea.
Yeah, your voice there, Todd, is garbled. I'm not quite sure why, but.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, it's very garbled. It's very difficult.
Okay.
Garbled.
My video. How's that? Is that better?
No.
No, not really. Maybe, I don't know what's going on. We can go to comment while you try to figure that out.
Okay.
We'll do that. Comments from the public, Vicky or Eleanor, do you have any
Yes,
comments?
we have e-comments. Go ahead, Vicki.
First comment is submitted by Lee Del Torio. There is already enough noise pollution from gardeners every day, several times a day on every residential street. It does not state the reason for the temporary use allowance or the time period considered. Please expand upon this when discussing. If this is allowed, I fear it will be followed by allowing all to use motorized leaf blowers. Thank you. Second comment is submitted by David Waldner. My name is David Waldner, and I am asking that the council not approve item N1, temporarily allowing the use of leaf blowers for city maintenance operations. As was previously discussed at length by council in 2018 when leaf blowers were banned, leaf blowers are a source of harmful particulate air pollution and two-cycle engine exhaust. We don't need more cancer-causing air pollution in the beach cities or elsewhere. This is particularly egregious given the current pandemic and health crisis. As I stated when I appeared before council in 2018, I am a previous director of maintenance and construction for the city of LA, and I gave the order to our crews to stop the use of leaf blowers in residential zones when the leaf blower ban was enacted in LA. We experienced no significant increase in our costs or labor hours required. Therefore, I question the claim that using leaf blowers will save 6,000 labor hours per year and recommend that the city crews continue to use non-polluting methods to perform their duties. Thank you. Third comment is submitted by Elaine Seeker. Allowing city maintenance crews to use leaf blowers would create a hypocritical double standard and is simply illogical on its face. There has not been any noticeable deterioration or hazardous conditions developing in our recreational areas with the use of cleaning methods currently in place. Although the great majority of our median strips have been restored with drought-tolerant plants, that has effectively eliminated the need for excessive and intensive landscaping upkeep. This proposed ordinance might set the stage for a reversal on the city-wide ban, which would detrimentally impact the health and well-being of its citizens. Besides the dust and toxins that will be blown around, who is to say that COVID-19 won't also be spread through the air we breathe and contaminate fixtures that are used by the public? Instead of amending the ordinance that has been successfully in place for 2 years, perhaps a redefinition and reconsideration of what the term clean really means is in order. Please do not authorize any exemption to the present ordinance prohibiting the use of motorized leaf blowers. And I believe that concludes the comments. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Just so everybody knows where the mayor stands, I'm a big fan of the leaf blower ban. I've lived it. I watched much of the leaf blowing. Really, is they're just blowing stuff around and blowing it off whoever property they happen to be working on, and it is noisy and it does kick up dust and just seems pointless. And my sense is that the majority of the public is quite happy with having banned them, and a lot of people are upset that we don't enforce it enough. So this particular issue, it does seem like a double standard to me. I'm sure our crew will do whatever it is we ask them to do, but they are looking for some relief on this for temporary status. So kind of on the fence about that. Anyway, let's go back to Councilmember Lowenstein, see if we can hear you better now. Todd, go ahead.
Better. Better.
No.
A little bit. Why don't you try to talk and let's see how it goes.
Okay. You know, I don't like using the term slippery slope, but this seems like one of those cases that somebody had mentioned. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, it's not too slow, Todd. We really can't hear you. I don't know what the problem is.
I think that's the best thing to do.
Might hang up and call back.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you just try hanging up and calling back? And Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully he's rebooting. Okay, so I just want to say, I think it was my and Councilmember Lowenstein's motion to ban leaf blowers. So I don't take this discussion lightly. I just want to put that out there right away. And Mr. Waldner, who made a comment, under public comment, he was actually, I think, one of the best people we had speak about this when we discussed it, especially from a city perspective. And I agree with the third commenter that sure, this can create a bit of a hypocritical situation, but I think we are really only having this discussion as a result of the fact that we are under extreme budgetary measures, and that is it. And so the key word that I want to point out and take away from all of this is the word temporary. I agree with Councilmember Gran. I think the temporary allowance of this should be through the end of the fiscal year. We're clearly the first wave of COVID is still going strong, and so by the time we get to year end and or mid year, we'll have a much better idea of what things are looking like. But right now, with recent closures again, I'm nervous about what that's going to even mean for our budgets in the out years. So I do want to stress I don't take it lightly. The only reason we're looking at this is to ensure that our public works crews are able to provide the same quality of service that residents have come to expect and want to see. And so we're really trying to juggle a lousy situation here. In a perfect world, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. But again, temporary. And so I'm with John for through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Horvath. Todd, you want to try again, or can you hear me even?
Can you guys hear me okay?
All right, that's much better.
Okay, good.
What did you do? Just call
now
back?
You can hear me okay, right? I just want to make sure.
You just call back in? Is that all you did?
No.
What did you do? Nothing?
How about now?
Oh, yeah.
Everything's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Gosh, modern technology. So, the term slippery slope I hate using, but this is a clear example of one.
where, we allow this for 1 year and then it gets extended over and over again. We say, oh, it's an emergency. Oh, we're reducing staff. Oh, whatever reasons. And I know that from the beginning, it's not been a popular idea from a number of people. But for the most part, from residents, I've heard probably 2/3 at least have been in favor of this. What we risk doing, as somebody mentioned, being hypocrites, but not only angering the people that are in favor of the leaf blower ban, but the people that were opposed to it will look at us going, well, there you go. You're using it, but we can't use it. You're going to anger them. And that's really going to backfire on people and on us. And it's the same thing almost with a mask. We tell people, hey, wear a mask. And then we go around not wearing a mask. I saw this, people pointing it out about the police not wearing a mask, yet we have ordinances wearing masks. Are we going to say that we're better or we're different than other people? Or are we going to say this isn't, we have to make sacrifices just like everybody else has to make sacrifices for the better of the community. And so I really think, that when you're explaining this to people and you're going to tell them you're under, we're under budget issues. So this is the only reason we're allowing it. I don't think they're going to buy it at all. I think they're going to have a real problem with this. And I'm not going to take the blame for it because I'm not voting for it. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think a number of people have already pointed out, I don't see that our medians and our parks are any worse than before. And I know that it creates a lot of work for folks. I've talked to some folks in Public Works. They're not exactly happy about it, but I don't think our streets look any worse or our medians look any worse than before. So, I personally think this is a bad idea to make this exception. I certainly don't think a year is worthy of this. And, I'll go on record again saying I'm opposed to this. I made the compromise before, but I don't think this is going to end up good. And I think you're going to get a lot of grief from people over this. So, tread wary because you're going to get a lot of blowback on this. I hate to use that term, but it's pretty appropriate here. You're going to get a lot of blowback on people, and they're going to be unhappy that the city's carving out an exception for them. How are we going to get the school district, who we've already talked about enforcing this with, to do the same thing? They're going to have the same issue. So, be careful of that. That's all I'm saying. I don't think we should do this. I think you're making a big mistake. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Narenheim.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Yeah, I just want to echo those concerns. To me, the only thing that's even more ridiculous than having an unenforceable leaf blower ban, which we're not enforcing and we're not doing anything proactively on, is to leave ourselves out of it because of financial restrictions and an inability to enforce and lack of staff. That is exactly what small businesses are facing right now. And people who are doing this type of work are having these exact issues, financial issues, staffing issues. I see contractors that the city has hired using leaf blowers on the streets all the time. And so for us to come through here and carve ourselves out of it during a COVID emergency where everyone's supposed to be wearing masks and we're so concerned about the air that we breathe, and saying that it's okay for staff to be using leaf blowers on sidewalks, parkways, streets, and medians, but the general public can't use leaf blowers on their own property, in their own backyard, or on their own driveway, but the city can. The city can do it smartly, and they can do it so much better than the public can. It is a huge hypocritical statement. And while I fully support city staff and public works, and I wasn't in favor of this to begin with, nor was I in support of taking away these positions, because we're taking the tools away. So we're taking the tools away, we're taking the jobs away, we're making their lives infinitely harder. But now we're saying to the public, okay, well, we're better than you, we can still do a better job. And I think it's really demeaning to the private world out there to say that we can do this better than you, we are smarter than you. We're going to pass laws that only apply to you, not to me. Do as I say, not as I do. Everyone wants to go online and talk about the protesters, and you have elected officials, state and local elected officials up there not wearing masks in the middle of these protests. And it's people notice these things. And, you know, we need to be careful about this, as like Mr. Councilman Lowenstein talked about. This shouldn't be taken lightly at all. If we're going to pass this, then we need to pass it for everyone, and small businesses included, gardening businesses, large businesses. I'd be amenable to make it just to small businesses, but I mean, if we're going to do this, let's open it up to everyone and allow it to go through temporarily for the budget season for everyone, not just for the city staff. And I feel bad for public works. We've been cutting their positions, cutting the amount of people we have, taking their tools away. I don't want to do that, but it's like everyone said, we're in tough times, and these tough times apply not just to us, but to everyone, and especially small businesses. So really don't think this is a smart idea. I think the public's going to look at this and say, you know, do as I say, not as I do, and use all those arguments. And they're 100% right. They are 100% correct. We are doing this because we're saying we're better than you, we're smarter than you, we have a larger impact than you, and we're going to take care of ourselves. And for you guys, well, you know what, just deal with it. So, yeah, I won't be voting for this unless it applies to everyone. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember MD.
So, I can see that argument on both sides of that. And originally, when I was thinking about how to help out the public works, and it kind of got lost in the whole conversation, is I was thinking of not doing a temporary ban, but I was thinking of changing it so that we did it by property size or something along those lines. And so that way, you know, if we had, you know, there would be certain parks, for example, in my area, Anderson Park or Veterans Park, or in District 3 or Franklin Park, are pretty big parks that could use that a resident wouldn't necessarily have to deal with because they don't have a 4-acre property. And so if we were to do something, consider something where it was anybody, so it's not just we can do it and you can't kind of a thing. It was anybody who has a property of over a certain amount of acreage could do it. So that would include maybe the senior center in District 4, you know, the Horizon Place. It would include, you know, the pier area, for example. So that's a thought that maybe then it's not saying that we get to do it and you don't. It's everybody gets to do it if their property is over a certain amount of square footage or acreage, however you guys want to do it. And then that way it applies to everybody equally, and it avoids the very high dense areas that where we got most of the complaints from. Because because I agree with you, Mr. Lowenstein, that the residents are highly in favor of this ban, and if anything, they're angry that we're not enforcing it. And so perhaps a tweak that could help our public works is that if it's a piece of land that's over a certain amount of square footage, then we can maybe help everybody out. It isn't just us.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember MD. I see 2 hands up, but I think they don't mean to be up. Councilmember Grand, did you want to speak again?
I did. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
And I appreciate everyone taking this. Again, I don't think any of us are taking this lightly. So that the amount of cuts that we actually had to make are significant. What we're asking is for a temporary and a Todd, I think your point about a slippery slope is very well made, and I appreciate you saying that. I do believe that we're in some extreme times right now, and extreme times, we do have to do some extreme things. And I don't see that this is something that we are going to slip backwards on. I get very good positive and I get very negative comments about leaf blower bans. And I appreciate that the fact that the residents want to have this in place. We do have an issue right now. We have an issue. You were talking about having to take these calls. Mayor Brandon and I just got a call from an email from another person that said, we're not enforcing the leaf blower ban. That's a whole different subject that we can go down. And again, we're talking about a number of different things about how do we get our 2 code enforcement people to actually go out and do that? How do we do all these things? How do we get those? That's all a discussion that we can have on how to make this better, and I appreciate that. What I'd like to see here is we are really focused in on our Public Works Department right now. Mr. Narenheim, if taking the entire ban and releasing it for a year or some set period of time, maybe that's the compromise that we can go through. I'm telling you, we're not being able to enforce it right now. We have COVID right now where people are not on the streets. We have a lot of people at home. And again, this is one of those things where this affects people at home because they're having to be at home more often. And now they're hearing more and more of these. So I get it that it exacerbates the problem. But what we're looking at here is that we cut a number of staff from our Public Works Department, and I believe it's something that we could do for them. If it were to be where we do not want to be hypocritical, remove it for this fiscal year, and we put it back. And the fact is that all 5 of us are looking at this slippery slope, and we're saying we go back and we put this back in place. It expires, the exemption expires on June 30th of 2021 at the end of this. And basically you say, look, we're going to go back and we're going to revisit this. We do have to revisit enforcement. We have to revisit our positions that we left open specifically so we can make these cuts. We can also make it so that if all of a sudden things kind of go back and we're able to start filling back positions like we would like to, we can also go and shut this off too, okay? But with an end date of June 30th, 2021, and if, as we're all wanting to bet on the COVID-19 situation rectifying itself, and we can start actually putting some staff back, we can open up our libraries full on, we can do all these different things, this can be one of them. And I'd be happy to do that. So I would say, as a compromise, I would suggest we do say we're temporarily lifting the leaf blower ban for all folks so that we're not being hypocritical, but we're saying there is a real time period that this goes back into effect. But during COVID-19 and the things that we're having to deal with both financially as well as socially, I'll just call it that, I think that could be a good compromise that we can reach. So I'd love to hear thoughts on that.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Grand. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, I don't really want to relitigate all the whole leaf blower ban thing, but I'm curious, Brandy, do you know how many citations we've issued for leaf blowers?
Yeah, so if you recall last mid-October, we had this conversation. At that point, City Council said, let's go ahead and start doing the citations. At that point, we'd only done 2 citations. Since then, up until when COVID hit, so about 5-month period, we had issued 20 citations. Once COVID hit, we were only doing windshield inspections, and the problems with issuing citations is you have to get the signature of the violator on the citation. So we weren't issuing citations. We started coordinating this last month to have PPE equipment for the code enforcement officer, have them go out once a week, but have them go out when we have a specific address, day of week, and time of day, so that we're really maximizing their time. And so we've actually issued 1 citation in the last month. Now, mind you, again, they're only going out once a week, and it's when we have the address, the time of day of week. And we have a few that have just been submitted to us. So we're going to be trying to coordinate the inspection days on different days of the week so we can try and get more of those. So we have issued, since October 15th, we've issued 21 citations.
Okay, so that's definitely better. Definitely better than 3.
Right, right.
But it's not where it needs to be, obviously.
We're trying to improve. And remember, keep in mind, the last 4 months we haven't, we've issued one. So, and that's just because of really wanting to take care of our employees and protect them and make sure that they're safe and not getting exposed.
So it's different than a parking citation, for example.
Right. Like a parking citation, you can leave on the vehicle. Here, you actually have to have the person sign it and hand it to them.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen,
Can I interrupt just for a second, Todd? Because
Sure, go ahead.
And I have an important question. Brandy, we originally had talked about finding the property owner. So if you have a picture with a date and time from a complainant, a neighbor or whatever, and there's someone using a leaf blower, this happened to me today, and I took a picture and I'll be sending it to you with date and time and address. Why do they have to sign? Can't you just mail the property owner a notice of violation? Here's the picture, here's the date and time. We do that with traffic, photos and things like that. And I thought we were going after the property owner. Poor Gardner.
No, we're not going after the property owner. The city council decided to continue the process, but instead of doing a notice, if you do a notice of violation, you're just doing continued notices, and then you have to take it to prosecution. It's a much longer process to get to that point versus a citation. They get that citation right then and there. They have to pay that citation. It's not, otherwise it's there's a lot more documentation, and I don't want to speak for the city attorney's office, but there's a lot more documentation that goes into just having pictures that somebody submitted as that evidence.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
That's okay. No worries. So, yeah, Nils and I are never in agreement on this issue in terms of leaf blowers, right? We're completely 180 from each other. But in this case, we agree that it looks really bad. It looks really bad where you're carving something out for the city and having to explain that to people. I'll say that again. It looks really bad. And I think you guys, if this passes, you're going to have to defend it on people. It's going to be lit up on Nextdoor, I'm telling you. When the minute somebody starts seeing people, and Laura, I agree that it would be nice to be able to do that, but people aren't going to be able to understand the difference between an acreage or square feet and that. They're just going to see somebody using a leaf blower and they're going to go ballistic. So I've already seen it on Nextdoor. I've seen people, going crazy on it. I've seen it on Facebook. I've talked to people. Sometimes I take grief for it. I'm okay with that because I think in the end, it's the right thing to do. But I think, like I said, you're going to anger both the people that are for the leaf blower ban and you're going to anger people that are against the leaf blower ban if you exclude them. And I'm not sure you want to, I don't think we want to go to the wholesale thing of blowing this thing up again because it'd be much more difficult to enforce it. So I think, I think we just bite the bullet on this one and deal with it. So that's my take. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Horvath.
You're muted.
Christian, you're muted.
Yeah, I agree with Todd. I don't think you can just open this back up and go back to where we were pre-ordinance. That just confuses people in general. So I wouldn't agree with that, John. I understand the point in it, but I just think it makes it even more complicated. And Todd, I agree. We've spent probably countless hours defending the ban and talking about it with people, and there's people who have really strong feelings on both sides of the equation. So if it's something that I have to spend more time talking about and letting people know the intricacies of our budget and where we're at, then I'm fine with taking that time to do it. So but a quick question for either Ted or Mike. So I recognize that this is going to save a lot of time and energy for the staff that's taking care of things, but I would hope, I guess it's not much of a question as it is a statement. I would hope that the teams would really use them judiciously. not just willy nilly. Like there was very specific things mentioned in the staff report that would it would help them, in very specific areas. So, I would just request that, by loosening up the ban for a year, if the council was to approve that staff really took to heart that this entire conversation we're having tonight. That's all.
Okay, Councilmember MD.
Okay, one last plea for my idea. So just to give you an idea on what that means is that it would be, so looking at all the different parks, all right, if you picked 6 acres, any property that was 6 acres or higher, you would then have Alta Vista Park, Anderson Park, Aviation Park, Dominguez Park, Franklin, and Veterans. That's it. That's all the other parks would not be included, and they would not be able to use the leaf blower in those parks. It would help the public works, and of those parks that I just told you, they tended to be away from residentials that would bother them, and you could make it any property that was 6 acres or more. And so and that way you kind of help both sides out. You keep it away from the residential. And if we remember from the very beginning, the wife wrote in Ziegler, right? Mr. Ziegler even said to us afterwards he would not be opposed. He wouldn't have been opposed to leaving it for commercial. So I think it would be within the realm of what people would find acceptable. And you've got to explain the ban anyway. And it keeps it away from residential to begin with, and it helps our public works people. So it would only be those parks if we were to pick 6 acres or more, and then you would end up helping public works tremendously, and you would be able to help out anybody else that has a 6 acre property or higher around in Redondo Beach. And it's not going, so therefore it's not going to affect anybody in the residential zoned areas. So just a thought. That's what I would propose.
What's the doggie's name? You're muted, Laura, but
It's Penny, my niece's dog. I had to mute because we had a ambulance go by and he was howling at it.
I'm sure he's in favor of the leaf blower ban.
Exactly.
I will say, I don't think there are a lot of 6 acre parcels in Redondo, though.
That's my point. There's not a lot of 6 acres. There's the Galleria.
You could just list the parks you just mentioned or whatever.
Right. Or you could just do that. But it could be 6 acres for anybody. But Galleria would benefit from that. And so would the pier area. And let's see, who else? Oh, Northrop Grumman.
Is that a motion?
Well,
has there been a motion?
All right, I'm going to, okay, so I make a motion that we change the municipal code to allow leaf blowers on 6 acres or more.
I have one quick question first. How big is City Hall, and how many acres is
City Hall's got to be more than 6 acres.
We know?
So sure, but it's getting complicated here. It's getting complicated. Okay, Councilmember Grand, did you mean to have your hand up still?
I did. That was going to be my question. So,
Right.
so we're trying to find a compromise that we can also explain. I would be amenable to the 6 acre piece as long as the City Hall parcels are available, and if it's 6, however big that is.
Well, I don't, we're deviating from what we were going to do here, and it's
right.
Somewhat complicated.
So I'll make a motion to, I'll second that motion. How's that?
Was that a motion? Did someone make a motion?
I did. I said that we make the municipal code to be for any property 6 acres or higher.
Okay, and that's your second.
What duration, Laura? Mike Webb said you have to fill in the blank on the duration.
Fill in the blank.
For this fiscal year. That's what I would be acceptable to.
All right, this fiscal year.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
Mayor Brand, we have one more e-comment.
Okay, go ahead.
The comment is submitted by Zaino Baji Jr. It is so hypocritical to disallow residents and the low-wage gardening workers to use leaf blowers and then apply an exemption to the city. That's not the way to govern Redondo. That's not the way to govern Mr. Grant and Ms. MD. Even during tough times, we have to stick to what is right, environmentally friendly and not loud and obnoxious. Have you looked at the percentage of residents who are working from home right now? You want now to unleash the city's arsenal of leaf blowers on the residents while they're working from home? Please come back to Earth folk and exercise real, rational, smart leadership. That concludes the new comment.
Okay. Well, with that, there's a motion on the floor and a second. And it is to allow the city to use leaf blowers for this fiscal year on properties greater than 6 acres. Is that the motion?
No, it's anybody.
Anyone.
Anyone.
Anybody. Okay, I'm sorry.
Not just the city. It shouldn't, because I agree with you guys. It's not fair to exclude certain people to do it. And I'm just throwing it out there. I wouldn't mind an input on, honestly, I didn't talk about staff about this ahead of time. And so I wouldn't mind input from staff on that, on whether that even solves their problem. And if it, you know what I'm saying? So
Do you want to continue this for a week and then staff can address what areas that will cover in the city? So you'll know exactly what you're voting on. And the way I will draft it, if you give that direction, is that there'll be an exemption for anyone using a leaf blower if it's on a parcel 6 acres or larger. And it's a temporary exemption until July 1st of 2021.
So isn't that what the second reading is for, Mr. Webb?
Yeah, but you won't know until then. So yeah, absolutely. You can just introduce it and you can approve it at the second reading.
Okay.
and look, let me just say, I hate leaf blowers. I voted for it. I get it, and it's not. I definitely think it's easier to defend not using the leaf blower by all means. Now, having said all that, I disagree with somebody. I forgot who said it, that it's now that it's a hardship financially for the city, so therefore we should be allowed to use them. Well, it's a hardship for anybody that doesn't have a job and had to let go of their gardener, and now they now need to go ahead and do their own maintenance on their yard. So I disagree with that that kind of premise, and so that's why I think that if we just make it so 6 acres or more, that's a reasonable thing to have the leaf blowers on. We can make it temporary, and if it's a problem, or if it turns out to be not a big deal, we can either extend it and make it permanent, or we just cut it off for the year. And again, this is just my way of trying to make some kind of compromise here, and but I'm not married to any of it.
Okay. There's a bunch more hands up. Let's get to closure here, you guys. I mean, we could come up with ideas all night long, but we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Mr. Simon, do we have leaf blower equipment still lying around, or did we get rid of all of our leaf blower equipment?
No, they've been in shelters. They've not been given
sheltering in place.
Have them? Yeah, they're basically in sheds, locked up.
Are we going to renegotiate our contract with our contractors?
We wouldn't be in this particular case. WCA has incorporated that into the current 4-year contract. That 10% increase that Mike mentioned was 2 years ago, and we were on the 4th year of the prior contract, and they did at that point ask for the 10% increase, which the council approved. It's actually built into the current contract, and this would not allow them to use leaf blowers because they're not working on a parcel that's greater than 6 acres at that point. They're working at individual trees.
Right. I don't know if anyone on staff wants to answer this question, but how many private parcels are there 6 acres or greater? Residential?
Oh, I can answer that. 0.
Exactly. So all we're left with is what? Northrop Grumman?
The pier, obviously.
The pier is public.
Northrop Grumman, the Galleria, the Horizons Senior Center apartment complex in District 4. There would be, wait, there was one more off the top of my head.
Beach Cities Health District.
Beach Cities Health District and AES.
I mean, this is just, you know, if we want to talk reasonable, anything that's 6 acres or more, that's completely unreasonable. If you can name the amount of 6-acre parcels that are private on one hand, that is the definition of unreasonable. I'm sorry. It just is. Completely unreasonable. You know, I mean, again, the reason why we passed the leaf blower, well, I didn't pass it. The reason why the leaf blower ban was passed in the first place was because of health concerns, for air particulates, dust, noise, air pollution, all of those things. And now you're saying it's okay during a health crisis. That is the most hypocritical passage of this, and allowing it on 6-acre parcels, which you can count on one hand, on private parcels. They're all commercial. So while I like the way you're going, Councilmember MD, with trying to go down this path, there's just no good way out when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Just, you know, my opinion, I'm going to stop digging and just say I'm not going to be voting for this. Thank you.
Okay, Ted, did you have another comment? Did you mean to have your hand up?
I did, actually. I have a couple. First question on the Civic Center, the City Hall complex. We're a little over 6.5 acres, just as an FYI. So this would work if that's the council's direction. The other part was to ask about the North Redondo bike path. All the other parcels that were mentioned were one single or contiguous parcel that had over 6 acres. The North Redondo bike path total is about 12 acres, but obviously they're not a single parcel, and just wanted to get clarification from the council if that was an intended area to keep or to keep out.
No, I would include that as one parcel. Yes, I would. I would consider that one parcel, but it doesn't sound like it's going to pass anyway. But yes, I would have included the entire bike path.
Ted, I would include the Esplanade on that one also.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. All right, so there's a motion and a second. I think it's clear. Why don't we take a vote? Roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim?
No.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
No.
Councilmember Horvath?
Aye.
Councilmember Gran?
Aye.
And Councilmember MD?
Well, that's surprising. Aye.
Yeah. Well, this might not surprise you. I'm very tempted to veto this when it comes back. I got to tell you guys, I'm very sympathetic to singling out the city like we're special. And there's enough controversy about leaf blowers. I'm not excited about us moving all this around. It's tough enough just enforcing a simple yes or no. And I could just hear it now, and it's fair. It's very fair criticism that, you know, I can't use mine, but the city's out there making all this noise and polluting everything, but I can't use mine. It just seems so elitist and very sensitive to that. And I'm very, you know, I can't veto it here because it's an ordinance, but I just want to serve notice because I don't want anybody to go run around doing a bunch of work to take that, you know, under consideration. But it did pass tonight, and, you know, you're coming back with an ordinance, and I guess we're going to talk about it again. So just want to tell you my leanings. I'm not just sitting here. All right. So there you have it. Passed 3-2.
Okay, Mayor, I need to read. Introduction by title only, ordinance number 3202-20, an ordinance of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending section 4-24.507 of Article 5, Chapter 24, Title 4 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, providing a temporary exemption to the ban of using motorized leaf blowers in the city for the city employees using a motorized leaf blower within the course and the scope of their job for introduction and for first reading as amended.
Okay. Thank you, Eleanor. Moving on to the next item, into discussion and possible action regarding awarding construction contract for the City Council chamber improvements. I would have added in there long overdue City Council chamber improvements, project number 20560. And again, Ted Simon, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am going to hand this over to Andy to go through the presentation. We know this has been a topic of discussion and of concern. As you mentioned, this is something that the council has been anxious to see moving into the construction phase. And we are at that point now to recommend that to you to award the construction contract. So Andy, why don't you go ahead and go through the specifics on the project award, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ted, and good evening, Mayor and council members. So originally there were a couple of projects here. One was to improve just the seat and the carpet and kind of clean up the council chambers, and the other was the installation of the AV and broadcast systems. As we began to look at those projects more closely in the light of the ADA compliance requirements that was came forward as part of our facilities report we did back in 2017, we realized that these two projects really had to go hand in hand because the ADA requirements required us to make changes to the dais and other areas that impacted the AV and broadcast equipment. So the two projects kind of married up out of the necessity to address all the ADA compliance issues. So the project got more complex at that point. As you can imagine, we decided we needed a design professional to help us with the architectural improvements. We went through a competitive solicitation process, and the city council awarded a contract to GPA in June of 2018 to provide architectural design services to move the project forward. As the work progressed in the design, the significance of what was needed to be done in the chamber to comply with the ADA report became more apparent. This new work involved modifying the slope of the floor in the public seating area and rebuilding the dais to make it ADA accessible. And so this added some complexities I mentioned, involved a number of city departments to help us coordinate everything that was happening in the chamber with the new design. Meanwhile, the contract for the purchase and installation of the broadcast and AV equipment was approved by the council in February of 2019. And the timeline proposed in that staff report was developed prior to some of these developments. And so it was actually optimistic compared to what needed to be done when we married it to the council chamber improvement projects. However, the library work was not impaired by these developments, and actually the library work was made ready as of late 2019 for a broadcast center alternative to the council chambers. As the scope was evolving, we thought it important to bring a conceptual design to the city council in May of 2019. That presentation highlighted some of the major elements of the project scope, including the floor slope change, restroom improvements, the dais and staff desk reconstruction, and a new lobby storefront. And we'd also discussed at that time the needed coordination with the formerly independent AV and broadcast upgrade project to this project, and that they would be linked. And we estimated at that time that we would be able to start no sooner than we said early 2020 in the staff report. So, and with the project duration of 6 to 8 months. After the conceptual design was approved, we asked GPA to continue with a final design phase and coordinate their design work with the provider of the broadcast and AV equipment, IMS, to make sure that all of the conduits, camera positions, screen positions, dais considerations, all those things incorporated their equipment seamlessly into the new project. So this required obviously several rounds of meetings and review. That took some extra time because the project was getting more complex. We also were required to redesign a portion of the lobby storefront after we went through our building review process, because it was determined by our building official that we needed a new door for egress and safety issue there. So we came back to you in January of this year with a small amendment for our architect to be able to design those additional improvements. And then in March of this year, we came to the council to get plans and specifications for the project approved. And both of those staff reports highlighted the linking of the two projects, and the staff report for the March item indicated a new time frame of August 2020 for it to begin construction in the same 8-month period through April of 2021. So in May, we received and opened 4 bids at the city clerk's office. The copy of the bid results is in your packet there tonight. Within a few days, our lowest bidder, who was about 50% below the grouping of the other bids, realized he'd made a clerical error, asked for his bid to be withdrawn, and that can be done under the public contracting code if certain conditions are met. We reviewed that, the conditions were met, so we allowed that bid to be withdrawn. And then when the second, so we were working with the second bidder, we had a couple of clarifications on his bid to make, and then we had a bid protest from the third bidder. That took a little time to clear up, so it took us a while to get to this point, but we're happy tonight to make the recommendation to our second low bidder, PUB Construction, in the amount of $797,000 for this project. So that concludes my brief summary of the project, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that rundown, Andy. Really appreciate it. There are no hands up. I don't think there's much discussion to be had. I think people are in favor of this, and appreciate you moving it along, and it's much needed. So, and I don't see any hands, so I'll just entertain a motion, or is there any public comment related to this?
We have no e-comments, Mayor.
Okay, I see Councilmember Grant has his hand up.
Sure, I had a quick question, or just a quick note. So just so we're clear, this was all grant monies that come in that have to be used for something similar to this, what we're doing, which is the chambers or broadcasting our meetings, things like that. So this isn't general fund. This is a grant specifically for this services. Is that correct, Andy?
These are PEG fees, right, which are restricted to use for the broadcast facility.
All right, well, thank you. Well, I'll make the motion to adopt by title resolution CC 2007-052, a resolution of the City Council of Redondo Beach awarding the contract to PUB Construction, a California corporation, in the amount of $797,000 for construction of the City Council Chamber Improvements Project number 20560.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Grant, seconded by Councilmember Horvath. Andy, since we're talking about, could you explain what PEG fees are for everyone?
You know, I'm not a real expert. Maybe Mike can jump in on this. Mike Wodzinski.
Yeah, I think Mike would
speak to it better than I can.
You know, I can cover that, Mayor, council members.
Go ahead,
It stands for public education and government funding. It's basically monies that are collected by the cable provider. They're restricted in terms of their use. They need to be used for capital projects related to the broadcast production of our local government meetings. It could be used for public access. It could be used for government programming, but it can't be for ongoing operations. It really needs to be for one-time capital costs.
And I would add, just from a CIP planning standpoint, the council, we have been, through your direction and over time, we have been stockpiling these funds effectively for this type of effort. It's taken a long time for us to accrue this amount of money to complete this project. And as we discussed with the capital budget this year, we're basically spending every dollar we have of PEG funds to complete both the audiovisual component of it, the IT component of it, and now the necessary structural ADA improvements, which are long overdue. So this is a complete makeover of the chambers. We won't recognize it when it's all done, and that's a good thing. And we're excited about getting to work on this.
Okay, Councilmember Nairnheim.
Yeah, real quick. The staff report last year in May of 2019 said that this project would be done actually in the springtime. I know that's been moved back, and now we're starting it in August. What is the expected time of completion now?
We're looking at probably April of 2021, 8 months from an August start date. Probably towards the end of August before we get started.
So we're actually going to start now in August. I mean, that's pretty much dead set. We're going to make that happen.
That's the process we have to get the contract executed and the contractor on board. We spoke with him today. We let him know that we need to start in August. He was agreeable. So assuming all the paperwork goes through fine, yes, we'll start in August.
Okay. And we're going to be, when we eventually start reconvening in person again, whenever that might be, that we're going to be in the main library up there, other than person or Zoom. So, okay.
Yeah. Assuming that's before spring of 2021, yes.
Does this mean that Councilman Nairnheim has to change his backdrop for Zoom?
Oh no! I have to move starting in August. What?
Yeah, it's under construction.
I'm here. I'm in the chambers.
You have to show a backhoe behind you or something. All right.
Nice one, John.
A motion on the floor in a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nairnheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, so that passes. You need to read anything, Honor?
Yes, please. Adopt by title only resolution number CC-207-052, a resolution of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, awarding a contract to PUB Construction, Inc., a California corporation, in the amount of $797,000 for construction of the City Council Chamber Improvements Project, job number 20560. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next item is discussion and possible action regarding approval of dissolution of the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the agencies of the Beach Cities Watershed Management Group regarding the Hermosa Beach Greenbelt Infiltration Project. Ted Simon. Again,
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I turn it over to Andy for more on this is something that the council has talked about. As you mentioned, this was originally the Greenbelt project in the city of Hermosa Beach, which Andy will talk about the history as to why we're going through the dissolution. I did also want to notify the council that we're joined by outside counsel, our attorney, Chip Andrews from Arteon and Associates. He's been instrumental in negotiating these discussions with the city of Hermosa Beach and the other cities. And also our civil engineer, who's been very technically involved with the project altogether, Geraldine Trevetti, is also online and available for questions when we get to that stage. Andy?
If I may, Ted, Mr. Mayor, as you recall, because the city of Redondo contracts out my services to Hermosa to do prosecution, and Cheryl Park is involved in that as well. We both recused ourselves from this matter and assigned Mr. Andrews to handle it. So I was not a participant and will not participate in this item tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So Ted, you're going to explain it, and then Andrew will step in.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, thanks very much, Ted. So just a little background. The beach cities work together with LA County to manage the requirements of the Stormwater Discharge Permit, or MS4 permit, we call it. We're known as the Beach Cities Watershed Management Group. The permit required the Watershed Management Group in the county to create a plan called an Enhanced Watershed Management Plan. We call it an EWIMP, to identify programs and projects it would pursue in order to meet the water quality targets for our receiving waters, the ocean, and comply with the permit targets. As an example, the city just finished a project in Veterans Park to divert dry weather flows into the park for infiltration. Projects like these contribute to cleaner waters immediately offshore, as highlighted by this year's recently published Heald Bay Beach Report Card, which gave the beach at the end of Topaz a AAA+ rating and included it on the annual honor roll. Just had to get that plug in. The Beach Cities EWIMP included several regional projects that would significantly contribute to the effort, and in particular identified as a first priority a structural project known as the Hermosa Beach Greenbelt Infiltration Project, located in the city of Hermosa Beach, but addressing runoff from each of the different agencies. The Beach Cities entered into a specific MOU to fund the preliminary and final design of the project, which would be led by the city of Hermosa Beach, and our city's contribution based on our tributary area was $431,615. However, as the project particulars were developed, the city of Hermosa Beach received considerable pushback from nearby residents to the project, and the city council of Hermosa Beach eventually decided the project could not be built in any form close to the original size and scale. After some discussion among the staff and actually some council subcommittees that were formed from several of the cities, the proposed MOU to dissolve the project's design MOU was developed for your consideration tonight. And other cities are in the process of approving this dissolution MOU as well. The dissolution MOU will require the city of Hermosa Beach to return all funds collected to the agencies that contributed and contribute an additional $160,000 towards feasibility studies to identify substitute project or projects. Hermosa Beach will step down as the lead for the next project, and the city of Redondo Beach will take the lead on identifying new projects and updating the EWIMP. However, the city of Hermosa Beach is still on the hook to take the lead in working with the regional board to negotiate extensions of the compliance time limits. The staff of the Beach Cities Watershed Management Group agencies are also working on 2 MOUs that you will be seeing shortly. One is required to update our EWIMP as we approach the 5-year mark. The RE-WIMP, we call it, MOU will contain the language authorizing the upcoming feasibility studies for replacement projects in this watershed, as well as review prior program progress and adjustments. The second MOU is for our monitoring system, that authorizes the regular stormwater discharge pollutant monitoring and analysis that informs the EWIMP programs. For tonight, the item before you is simply to dissolve the design MOU for the Greenbelt project, return all the funding, collected by Hermosa Beach and allow the city of Redondo Beach to proceed with the new feasibility studies and revised EWIM studies. So that concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. First hand up is Councilmember Naranack.
Real quick, how much of the fees did you say we got back from Hermosa on?
Yeah, it's 100% of what we gave, 431,615.
Perfect. And is there any way we could, or we haven't decided yet where we'd be putting these infiltration projects on our side, on the other side of 190th or Prospect, right?
No, we haven't begun the feasibility studies yet. No.
Okay. And I know people are going to ask this question, AES site, why can't we just use AES site?
We don't own it for first. We'd have to get the property owner's permission, and we didn't know if that would be slam dunk. So we haven't decided to look there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's all the questions. I get asked those questions all the time. So just want to reiterate those. Thank you very much. That was all I had.
Okay, Councilmember Grant.
Yes, so Andy, you had mentioned that Hermosa Beach needed to go back and they are going to work on the extension of our compliance with the process there. When I had spoken with some of the council members over in Hermosa Beach, and they were talking about that they wanted to pull out of this project, that they wanted to reverse course. They were also talking about the Prop 1 grants, which is just a little bit over $3 million. They assured me, oh yeah, we're gonna be able to get that money back. They want to give it to us. They want to do all these things. Are they contractually obligated to go out and really kind of lobby for that money again, and or make sure that we get our Prop 1 funds? Or are those funds just going to go away, or do they stay? So what goes on with the Prop 1 grant?
So for now, we don't have any claim to those funds anymore. As I understand it, the state withdrew its appropriation to us based on the understanding that the project wasn't going to go forward. I don't think we have any kind of guarantee that those funds will come back to a future project. I wasn't privy to the conversations with the state agency that provided the funding or in the Hermosa Beach side, so I'm not sure what may have been said, but we are not looking at it like those funds are going to be available. We can certainly reapply for those funds in our next phase, but for the time being, we shouldn't count on those. We do have, since that project the EWIMP was begun, we do have this new funding source, Measure W, which does provide a share to the city every year. It's about $700,000. I think we programmed that out a few years with other types of projects, but there's another pot of money from that program that's available for regional projects, and we would certainly apply for money from Measure W to pay for some or maybe perhaps all of this project when we're ready to go to construction.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned during some of the discussions here within our own city council, as well as with Hermosa Beach, it's very disappointed that this project didn't go through. It is a wonderful project. It would have solved a lot of the issues for the 4 cities that were there. Understand that they have to do what they have to do as well. So unfortunately, we have to dissolve it and go forward. But anyway, just disappointing that we didn't get this project done. So thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Grant. Councilmember MD.
Actually, I just want to go ahead and make a motion that we do this. We've already beat this one to death. Sorry, I had it up here. So I just take staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, I'll just echo Councilmember Grant. This was a great project. It's really a shame it did not go through. And I think it's a lesson for everybody not to go too far down a road without checking with the public, that they understand what's coming. If we find a similar project to divert and infiltrate the Redondo storm drain, I am very confident that we'll be able to get funding from the state and from the county to accomplish this project. It's all about location, location, location. and there was tremendous public pushback once they saw the time and level of construction it was going to take, even though the finished product was going to be virtually unnoticeable. So yeah, hopefully we can get back on track. We need it's ripe for this sort of fix. It discharges to the Santa Monica Bay. We get violations there. It's a large drain. And these projects are happening all over the state. And I believe it was the State Water Resources Control Board money that was had been allocated to $3 million. So, yeah, disappointed that didn't happen. So, anyway, with that, there's a motion on the floor.
Mayor?
Who seconded that? I apologize.
Mary, we have, oops, we have,
Oh, you
no,
have a-
yeah, just one for the record, just want to let you know
Go
that
ahead.
there's no e-comments.
Oh, you're just saying there's no comments?
Correct.
Okay, great. Councilmember Nierenheim, roll call vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Grand.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, do you need to read?
No, Mayor, not at this one. Thank you.
Great. So with that, we'll move on to item 01. There goes Redondo's Finest right by my door. Hang on a second. Okay, discussion and possible action regarding the city's local emergency pertaining to COVID-19. Joe.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. We've touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the meeting. We're before you again tonight with the status report and recommended resolution confirming actions taken recently in our continuing response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. We have a resolution before you tonight confirming my order of a week ago, June 30th, which accomplished a number of items in advance of the county's decision to close the beaches during the weekend of July 4th. So what we did, and we've touched on some of these earlier, very specifically for Redondo Beach, took action to close Veterans Park and associated parking lots. We closed the parking spaces on the west side of the Esplanade weekend. We closed George Freeth Way, both the street and the parking. The sidewalk was left open. We closed the parking lots on the border, both of Torrance and Hermosa Beach, the coastal parking lots. So those items, those actions were taken just for the holiday weekend. Those areas are back open again. We also took action to close the non-business portions of the pier consistent with the county health order that reinstated the closures of piers. So did this with a lot of work on the part of Public Works, the police department, coordination with the city attorney's office. This health crisis has really affected every single department of the city, and I really want to thank all of the staff and all the departments for their help in our continuing responses. So those were the items just for the July 4th weekend. There are some other actions related to our facilities and continuing closures that are reflected in the June 30th order that we're asking for confirmation of. We have the continuing closure of our city facilities, city offices until further notice. And that includes the 3 senior centers, the Performing Arts Center, the city's teen center, the city's offices and public counters, our city libraries, with the exception of curbside service. And then finally, as part of the order, consistent with the council's action related to adoption of the budget and the ordinance that was introduced earlier tonight, we also have the continued suspension of our commission meetings through the end of August, with the exception of the Planning Commission, the Harbor Commission, and the Budget and Finance Commissions. We will go to every other month for those commissions to meet, those other commissions, but that will happen after the final adoption of the ordinance which you introduced tonight. So all of these actions are taken with the interest of protecting the health and safety of both of our employees and the public. So we don't do these things lightly. Something that is, we take these obligations and responsibilities very seriously. As you know, it's a rapidly changing situation. Public Works and Community Development have had a lot of interaction as well with the local businesses related to outdoor dining, use of public spaces for restaurants and retail use. I want to acknowledge Public Works Director Ted Simon, Brandy Forbes for their work on outdoor dining. Also want to acknowledge Mike Webb for his work and support of kind of this new area that, again, we talked about Redondo Beach showing leadership. I would challenge a city to find, someone to find a city that's done a better job of dealing with outdoor dining than what we have during this public health crisis. So what we have is a copy of some of the permitting materials attached to the report. The permits were issued June 30th. Very quickly, thanks to Alan Sanford and his team, working with the Riviera Village BID, have dining areas in place and operational. The permit runs through September 7th. It can be extended if necessary. And while not in the report, also have some additional information I wanted to share. We just became aware of the CARES Act monies that will be allocated to our city. As you'll recall, cities above 500,000 in population had a direct allocation of monies. Actually, no, it was above 300,000 was a direct allocation of monies. There, we were waiting to find out what our potential share would be. We learned that based on the formula that is in place, that's largely based on population, that we have the potential to receive upwards of $827,000 for our COVID-19 related expenses. So there is paperwork that we will need to complete, and we will be back in touch for the completion of that work. But again, it's in anticipation of extra expenses that the cities had with regard to overtime, testing, a variety of extra expenses that we had in response to the public health crisis. So again, that's new information. We are still digesting that. It will be, we'll be back before you with some additional information along those lines. So really the recommendation at this point is to have the council adopt the resolution confirming the order of June 30th. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Councilmember MD.
I just want to say, to repeat what was said earlier, thank you to all the residents who complied, and it really kind of shows what a great city we are. That everybody understands. We're highly educated. People really get why we have to do what these things are. Thank you to all the public works for doing everything so quickly, and of course to Mike Webb's office for all that they do. And so, without a doubt, it's great news that we're going to get 827,000. Of course, that's nothing compared to the 8 million that we've lost over COVID, but it's great that we got that back, some of that back. Hopefully there'll be more coming down the pike. So in the meantime, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt by title only resolution CC 2007-053, confirming the actions of city manager acting as the director of emergency services and issuing additional emergency public orders dated June 30th, and an updated summary of the emergency orders under the City of Redondo Beach's emergency authority.
I'll second that.
Mayor,
Okay,
we have no comments on this item.
Sure, go ahead.
We have none.
Oh, you have none. Okay, great. Councilmember Nairn.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Joe, I got a quick question. When does, people have been asking me, I emailed you the other day as well, when does street sweeping start again, or when are we thinking about it? Other cities that are doing that. There's a lot of questions on that. People are leaving their cars and
it's just not getting done in a lot of areas.
Yeah, so
ticketing.
Yeah, we have not set a specific date for enforcement to resume. Street sweeping is happening to the extent that it can without the cars moving. But as far as we have, the approach that we've taken is not to set a hard and fast date for the return of it. That basically, as long as we have the safer at home order or variation of that in effect, that basically that's kind of our thinking, to not have the enforcement happen for that type of parking enforcement during that time. We do have something front and center on our website that provides that information. And as we've talked about, we will certainly provide significant advance notice so that we don't catch people unaware to start with enforcement without giving people plenty of advance notice. So, Ted, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think you've done a great job with that, Joe. And we placed the information front and center on our website. It is also on the Public Works website that the street sweeping does continue. And we get multiple phone calls on a daily basis asking the same question. And as Joe answered it, until this situation is a little bit more under control, we're asking to relieve the citation component of it, but we'll continue on with the street sweeping effort.
Okay. Joe, you said December 7th for December 6th, I think you said, for the Riviera Village parking or garden patio dining?
September
is what the permit currently is the update on it.
I'll take it up with you, I guess, you and Ted, to extend that a little bit longer. You know, the biz put in a lot of work and money into that. We need to get some longer payoff time. It's been extremely popular. It's just been a win-win-win for everyone, for the city, for getting more parking revenue down there, sales tax, businesses. Creme de la Creme, for instance, on the news, they were interviewed last week, Friday, and said that they were basically planning on shutting the doors. But now that we have this garden patio dining, they are able to make it through this season with some open seats. So it's a huge win for these businesses who are actually planning on closing their doors. So I'd love to see if we can extend that longer, and I'll reach out to you separately after this meeting to get that going, as well as Ted, the extra parking spots that we were looking for as well. This is all part of the COVID thing. And you guys, Ted, I want to give you a big shout out for working with the Riviera Bid. I know it wasn't simple with plan changes, the 1, 2, 3, or 6 different plan changes that they had along the way. But let me tell you, one of the reasons why it's really become so popular is because we went through those iterations. Instead of having a street closure, having the street open, and that's been a huge success, part of the success. And making it equitable to everyone along the way, have all the restaurants there, and we're going through phase 1, going to phase 2 right now, and nothing makes me happier than to see those parking spots taken in the triangle with diners and people hanging out on the fake grass, the beautiful painted barriers, and people spending money down there enjoying the great outdoors. So thanks to the entire staff to make all that stuff happen. That was and of course, City Attorney's Office for shuffling that through when it could have just sat there on a desk somewhere. So it's not just, when everyone knows, it's not just paperwork. These are real businesses that we're affecting and real lives that are affecting, and it's a truly heartfelt thank you. It gives a lot of the new businesses like Swell Deli that just opened up actual hope moving forward. It really, truly does, and I can't express that enough. So this is a great news item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Nierenheim, and I'd like to tee off on that particular issue and thank you and former Councilmember Ginsburg and really everybody, from the city attorney on down, Ted Simon, the businesses. It's really what's happened there is kind of a microcosm of what's been happening at the city at large, where everybody's coming together to figure out an answer to these difficult questions, where it's closing the beaches or opening up outdoor dining, or what to close when, what to reopen when. And unfortunately, many of the metrics related to this are going in the wrong direction. But I just think we have to stay the course. I see more people wearing masks now. I think that's important. You're starting to see other areas have to shut down again, which is very unfortunate, whole states. And there's a lot of disagreement between states, counties, cities, all over the country. And I just feel very good that Redondo Beach is finding its way in consultation with the other cities how to proceed. So I think what we've been doing, we need to stay the course, keep close eye on things like hospitalizations and ICU capacities and such, which we've been doing. And I just you can just see the collective effort from everyone, and a lot of smart people out there with a lot of experience making good discretionary decisions on what to do and what not to do. It's a very difficult situation. It's there's no precedent for it. And we're kind of learning as we go and doing the best we can. And I feel good about what our response has been. As I said, I see the public starting to step up more. I see more masks on the beach today. People were just walking on the beach with a mask on. I mean, why not? I mean, it's not that hard. And it helps protect everybody. And that seems to be emerging that, the best way we can get through this and minimize the impacts is by everybody wearing a mask when you're out in public and doing things as safely as possible, being very mindful of, is this safe? And did I forget my mask? Oh, geez, I got to go back and get my mask, that sort of stuff. And just being conscientious. So anyway, with that, Nils, I don't think you meant to still have your hand up. I'll go to Ted Simon. Ted, did you want to make another comment?
Thank you, Your Honor. Actually, just one comment. I do want to say a special shout out and thank you to Brandy Forbes. She's been instrumental in getting all this improvement done in Riviera Village, not only on the regular conditions and the discussions, but also with the Coastal Commission to get the waiver in place in order to let this happen. So special thank you to Brandy. Yeah, thank you. And we hadn't even mentioned that. And a lot of people don't realize the Coastal Commission controls the parking in the coastal zone of Redondo Beach, which is everything west of PCH. So whenever we do things like, shut down parking to put, dining out there, you're treading on their territory. And so negotiating with them and Brandy's work is instrumental in that. And it goes unnoticed, which it probably should be, but we're here to notice Brandy. So thank you for pointing that out. Joe, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I did. There's one other person who has done a lot of work on all of these emergency orders, not as much on the outdoor dining, but pretty much everything else, and that is Mike Wazansky. And so I would be remiss without saying how much of an important role that Mike has played throughout this entire process. He and I have worked very closely together on all of this, many hours where we're the only ones at City Hall working on this stuff. So I want to give a shout out to Mike in particular.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, and thank you, Mike. It's really been a team effort, and it's really, really heartening to see that. It hasn't been easy. So it's been a lot of extra hours on everybody's part, and we know that we feel the pain of what's going on. I went to a new coffee house on PCH, and I'm going to get the avenue wrong, but I think it was Avenue D, Terraza. And it's a great new coffee place. I encourage anybody to give it a try. Right on PCH on the west side. I think it's Avenue D.
Yep, you're right. Avenue D.
They opened up and they had to shut down 6 weeks after they opened. And once they were allowed to reopen, hey, they reopened. I went in there today and tried it. It was fantastic coffee, and they have some nice foods. And so, let's help support our local businesses and point out where, like the store out in Artesia, where we should be patronizing our local businesses as much as we can, keep our community going. So, and it means, going out to dinner here in Redondo, if you're going to do that, or getting your coffee here in Redondo, or what have you, going to the cleaners in Redondo. So with that, I guess city manager items, is that it, Joe?
No, we got to vote on this.
Got to vote on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath?
Aye.
Councilmember Gran?
Aye.
And Councilmember MD?
Aye.
Okay.
Mayor, I have to read
Oh, you can
the
read it.
resolution,
Yeah.
yeah. Adopt by title only resolution number CC-2007-053, a resolution of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, confirming the actions of the city manager acting as the Director of Emergency Services in issuing additional emergency public orders dated June 30th, 2020, and an updated summary of emergency orders under the City of Redondo Beach's Emergency Authority. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you have any more city manager items you wanted to mention?
No, that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, mayor and council items. Councilmember Narenheim.
Oh, I have nothing. Thank you.
I guess these are referrals to staff. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember Horvath.
Yeah, I just want to make the referral I mentioned earlier related to North Redondo Beach parking, especially along Artesia and Aviation. Again, I'm not sure if that was part. I thought it was citywide and part of that Walker report, but if it's not and it's a part of the general plan advisory, aviation and Artesia corridor study, I just want to have a conversation come back to us related to the discussion of parking, possible monetization of it, and what we can do up in that area.
Does that include Artesia and that parking area?
That entire area, Artesia, Aviation, the North Redondo area. Yeah.
Okay.
What we could,
Leaving
what
it
we
broad,
could,
yeah.
Yeah, maybe what we could do is when we bring back the quarter plan for your review, as part of that staff report, we can provide you an estimate to expand the Walker study to perhaps follow up on issues that arise in that conversation. Because when you review the corridor plan, you're going to talk a lot about parking need, supply and demand, both for residents as well as businesses. There's recommendations in that plan to talk about perhaps acquiring additional lots to build more parking that could be shared amongst the businesses, could be used by residents, patrons of those businesses. There are a lot of planning questions, I think, that we're going to want to answer, or at least attempt to answer and better understand in that conversation. I think that will better inform the parking analysis I think ultimately we'd want to consider. So maybe we'll bring back to you, as part of that, a conversation about parking and perhaps a quote from Walker to expand and amend their contract to study whatever those follow-up issues are after you have that discussion. There's a lot in that document in particular, and I think the biggest problem for parking we want to solve is meeting the needs of prospective businesses in that area.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Forgive me, Mike. So you need us to have another discussion to do that? That's what Councilmember Horvath is angling at, or what?
Just refer as part of that conversation. We're bringing that back to you as part of our regular work plan already. Refer that we include in that a conversation about the costing associated with an amendment to the Walker agreement to consider follow-up parking issues along that corridor.
Well, let's have a vote to have you do that then, because that seems like your referral to me. So, Councilmember Narenheim, roll call vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Grand.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, so there's your referral. Great. We don't have to have a separate item. Anything else, Christian?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Grand.
No, thank you.
Councilmember MD.
So thank you.
I got a couple things. One, I had two people approach me, said that they had applied. One person said they had applied for planning commission or tried to apply for a planning commission position, and the software program that they were using on the city website said there were no openings. And there are in fact two potential openings. Likewise with Preservation Commission, it said there were no openings. And so she wanted to apply, but she couldn't. And so there's two expiring planning commission positions and one termed out Preservation Commission. So I don't know what's going on or how we fix that. Eleanor, are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that. If you can provide me those two who try to apply, because our software, it's with Granicus, and it's not even, it doesn't even know what is open and what's not. You can just apply, and you have choices. You just pick first, second, and third choice. So.
Well, that's what they were expecting, and when they chose one of those commissions, it said there are no openings.
Yeah, I didn't have, because we've had 55 plus applications, and this is the first time I've heard about it.
Okay, I'll have them call you.
Yeah, because we're setting up, we're creating, or getting it ready for the next meeting on July 14th for the interviews.
Yeah. Okay. And then I want to thank staff for starting the shower. I went down by the hand launch, and there had to be like 20 people going in their boards and their kayaks and everything. And I think that shower is going to be a big hit. So thank you to staff for getting around to designing it themselves, given the outrageous bid they received. I just want to encourage them that it's going to be a big hit, my prediction. So with that, I guess tonight we're going to adjourn in memory of Yvetta Johnson. Hang on one second. I don't want to mispronounce her name. Inetta Johnson, who was a member of our Redondo Beach Police Department, volunteer in policing. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn in memory of Inetta Johnson, volunteer.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Second. So motion by Councilmember Lowenstein, second by Councilmember Horvath. Councilmember Nierenheim, roll call vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Horvath.
Aye.
Councilmember Gran.
Aye.
And Councilmember MD.
Aye.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you. Do we have a meeting next Tuesday, Joe? Regular open session meeting? Commission?
We're adjourning to both closed session as well as open session. If we don't have closed sessions, we'll cancel that. So
Okay.
it's to 4:30.
Okay. Or is it the commission interviews next Tuesday?
Right, commission interviews, and we have 55 plus applicants.
Okay. It's going to be
So,
fun.
They'll all be, and it's all through Zoom. They'll all be able to participate through Zoom.